Chapter 1876 Truth and Illusion. My home. Facility. The woman's expression turned odder. Zhou gazed at her, and knew that there was indeed something wrong. How could anyone describe their world as a world without gods? No matter how different the two worlds were, they would have some detailed descriptions, and not say things like a world without gods. This sentence itself made Zhou find it odd. This didn't seem like something a human would say. It was more like an answer preset by a machine. The woman was clearly not a machine, so why did she answer the question like this? What do you remember? Zhou stared at the woman and asked. I remember that my husband and I were very loving. We had a daughter, but she wasn't very healthy. And my world. I remember. The woman became incoherent. Zhou could imagine her current feelings. If it were him, he might have collapsed as well. Tell me, how do you use the toilet in your world? What kind of food do you eat? Where did you buy food? Zhou asked some more questions. The toilet is in the room. The food is purchased from the food machine. I remember now. Everything in our world is automatic. Whatever we need, we just need to press a button and things will be delivered through the pipes. The woman had already realized the problem, but she couldn't bring herself to question her life. She was still trying to find some evidence to prove that her life was hers. In other words, you have never left your home. Everything you know comes from those technological products, right? Zhou asked after some thought. Of course I left home. How can I not have left home? Didn't I go to the research facility? The woman said with a pale face and trembling lips. And apart from the research facility? Zhou asked. Apart from the research facility. The woman couldn't continue. Also, you said that the research facility belongs to a very powerful person. Then what's that person's name? You never said her name. Zhou pressed further. I don't know. I only know that she's very powerful, but I don't know her name. The woman shook her head in pain. You are full of contradictions. You say that she's very powerful, so she must be very famous. You even know that her cultivation technique is called Lost Immortal Sutra, so why don't you know her name? At the very least, she should have a professional title or something. Zhou enunciated each word clearly. I don't know. I really don't know her name. The woman shook her head in horror. Then you should know your husband's name, right? Zhou looked at the woman and asked his last question. Of course I know my husband's name. His name is... The woman suddenly broke down as she held her head and let out a heart-wrenching scream. Without needing the woman to answer, he already knew the answer. This woman was just a puppet. Perhaps her memories had long been tampered with. Perhaps she had been an experimental subject since she was born. She brought the phone and Lost Immortal Sutra. The person behind the scenes probably wanted her to bring these things here. Who is the person behind the scenes? Is it the woman in the Lost Immortal Sutra? What does she want? Zhou would imagine that he could approach the truth after finding this woman, but he suddenly realized that the truth was even more complicated and puzzling than he imagined. Who's controlling all of this? Is the world I'm in real or illusory? Zhou was already beginning to doubt the authenticity of this world. The phone could simulate this world's dimensional zone out of thin air. In the past, Zhou only found it magical, but now that he thought about it carefully, he suddenly found it terrifying. Why can a phone download dungeons in reality? Could it be that this world is built from data streams, allowing it to be downloaded into the game? Could this entire world be virtual? Zhou felt a chill run down his spine. Although he felt certain that this world was real, who knew if this feeling was just a kind of data? Just like everything the woman had experienced, the truth she believed in, and even the fact that she was willing to risk her life for it, didn't seem that reliable now. No. I have a family. I have a husband. I have a child. Yes. I have a child. My child can prove everything. This can't be fake. The woman pounced over crazily and grabbed Zhou. You know where my child is, right? You know, right? Yes, I know. Zhou nodded slightly. Take me to her. My life can't be a lie. I have a child. The woman's expression was somewhat distorted. All right. Zhou agreed. Ninth Heaven's human sovereign appeared behind the woman and pressed a hand on her head. A ball of light trapped the woman inside. No matter how the woman struggled, she failed to escape the ball of light. The ball of light had the characteristics of the first order of chaos. It was nigh indestructible against anything under the power of the apocalypse grade. The Ninth Heaven's human sovereign reached out and grabbed it. The ball of light automatically shrank, turning into a glass ball the size of a pigeon egg that landed in Zhou hand. From the looks of it, I can only meet that person. Now that the dimensional airspace couldn't withstand Zhou's apocalypse grade strength, Zhou arrived in front of Chess Mountain's mountain wall. The flower was still growing on the mountain wall, sunbathing lazily. The Darch, I'm here. Zhou said as he looked at the flower. There were a total of 5 people who had come into contact with the truth. Jing Daoxian and Zhou Lingfeng's knowledge was likely limited. They had never been on the huge ship and knew nothing about the other world. Wang Mingyuan and the former principal had been on a ship before, so they had some understanding of the other world. However, even they didn't know if what they knew was the truth. Zhou guessed that the things on the ship were deliberately brought over by the mastermind. The credibility of those things wasn't high. If there was anyone who could understand the truth, it would be the immortal Darch who had wrecked the woman's plan, the Darch of present day. You want to know about that woman? The flower's green leaves extended out in an extremely human-like manner as though it was stretching. Yes. Zhou nodded. Then you've asked the wrong person. The Thearcha's answer exceeded Zhou expectations. What's wrong? Zhou asked again. I've never been on that ship. I don't know much more than Wang Mingyuan. If you want to know anything, you should ask Wang Mingyuan, not me, the Darch said. What I see might not be true. I want to know your answer, Zhou said after some thought. My answer is very simple. Go to that world and take a look. You will naturally understand everything, the Darch said. If you aren't confident, you can ask someone. She's the person most likely to understand that world. Isn't it Wang Mingyuan? Zhou asked in surprise. Of course not. Everything that woman brought back then has been studied by that person. Do you think anyone knows that world better than her? The Darch said with a smile. Devil King. Zhou immediately knew who the Darch was referring to. However, the Devil King had already become the present demonic neonate. She no longer had her past memories, so what could he ask? Unless Zhou would allow demonic neonate to fuse with the devil soul left behind by the Devil King and retrieve her past memories. But was such a demonic neonate still demonic neonate? Even if she was still demonic neonate, would she forgive him for killing her? Zhou felt mixed emotions, as he was momentarily at a loss. She has already grown up. Even if you don't let go, she will slowly awaken. When she advances to the Apocalypse grade, it will be the day the Devil King returns, the Darch said indifferently, as though she had long seen through demonic neonate's identity. That's true. Zhou sighed and looked up at the flower. Do you need me to release you? There was no point in continuing to imprison the Darch. If she wanted to be released, Zhou didn't mind doing the favor. Unnecessary. The breakout is at hand. I should have time to participate in the Destiny battle, the Darch said with a smile. You want to participate in the Destiny battle? Zhou was alarmed. Of course, I want to become the rightful lord of the dimension. Then, I'll go to that world to see who's controlling all of this. It should be a very interesting opponent, the Darch said. Chapter 1877 Something Grandpa Left Behind. After leaving Chess Mountain, Zhou knew that the battle at Destiny platform was truly crazy. Wang Mingyuan and the Darch would participate in the battle at Destiny platform to vie for the throne of the dimension. Unfortunately, he was also embroiled. The name on Destiny platform isn't mine, but my ninth heaven's human sovereign. I wonder if I can avoid participating in this battle. Zhou wasn't afraid, but he didn't know why he needed to participate in this battle. He didn't want to become the Dimensional King, nor did he have an enemy he had to kill. Why would he participate in this battle? As he walked towards Luoyang, Zhou kept thinking about something. He could directly teleport to Luoyang City, or even accurately enter a room, but he walked slowly because he was still in a dilemma and couldn't make a decision. The woman he trapped might be Jing's mother, but it was also possible that she wasn't. After all, even the woman's own memories weren't reliable. Who knew if the memory of Jing being her child had been stuffed into her mind by someone? If she was really Jing's mother, shouldn't he let Jing know of her existence? Zhou felt that she had the right. However, if the woman wasn't Jing's mother, letting Jing know of this would only add to her worries. As he pondered, Zhou had already walked to the door of Overseer Manor. Although Zhou had already concealed his true appearance, and ordinary people couldn't tell who he was, and Sheng was already waiting at the door. Young Master One, Overseer is waiting for you, and Sheng said with a heavy expression. Why isn't Ah Yong here? Zhou couldn't help but frown when he didn't sense Ah Yong's aura. She's out, and Sheng said as he walked. I owe that child too much. I should have spent more time with her, but unfortunately, it's the most critical moment now. I really don't have the time to accompany her. Zhou knew what Sheng meant. Now that Earth's full-scale breakout was imminent, Luoyang might be fine, but all sorts of dimensional creatures had long run amok elsewhere. Most humans could only be active in specific dimensional zones. The dimensional zones that used to look extremely dangerous had now become a safe zone for humans. Of course, that was only limited to dimensional zones controlled by humans. Even so, there was still news of mutations of already controlled dimensional zones, wiping out the humans hiding inside. The reason Luoyang was better was firstly because of the family's actions, and secondly, because this was the place closest to Chess Mountain. This was the last place to break out. What puzzled Zhou Wen was that Sheng didn't take him to Tianzuo's office. After passing through the City Lord Manor, he didn't walk far from the back door before arriving at an area surrounded by an electric fence. Even with Sheng's status, he needed to produce a special device when he passed by the guard, allowing the guard to verify it before passing. After the two of them entered, Zhou Wen realized that there was only one building in the fenced area. It was a strange building that looked like a huge metal rod embedded with crystals stabbing into the sky. Although it was taller than many skyscrapers and had a diameter of dozens of meters, on careful look, one would realize that it wasn't a building. It was more like an energy transmission device. And Tianzuo stood in front of the huge pillar-like installation. Many staff members were busy working on it. "Did you bring that woman?" And Tianzuo turned to look at Zhou Wen when he heard Sheng's voice. "You know her?" Zhou Wen asked with a frown. "No, but I can guess that she's related to little Jing." And Tianzuo stared at Zhou Wen and said, "Before figuring out the truth, I don't want anyone to disturb little Jing." "Do you know the truth?" Zhou Wen asked Tianzuo. "No. Didn't you come here to tell me the truth?" And Tianzuo said indifferently, "Unfortunately, I don't know if it's the truth." Zhou Wen didn't wish to waste his breath on Tianzuo as he recounted the woman's relationship with little Jing, as well as the woman's origins and everything else. And Tianzuo and Sheng were shocked when they heard that. They only knew that Jing wasn't Zhou Lingfeng and Ouyang Lan's child. When they saw the woman on the cube screen, for some reason, they felt that the woman was related to Jing, but they didn't know that there was such a complicated relationship. In other words, there are two possibilities. This woman might be little Jing's biological mother, or it might be a memory that someone injected into her mind. And Tianzuo said after some thought, "Yes, if we want to know the answer, I'm afraid we can only enter the research facility the woman mentioned." Zhou Wen even began to suspect if the world the woman mentioned existed. Perhaps it was just a research facility for higher-level creatures in the universe. "How can we enter that research facility?" And Tianzuo clearly had the same thoughts as Zhou Wen. He wanted to visit it. That woman said that she brought a device along that allows her to return, but that device was lost in the battle with the Arch. She doesn't know how she can return now. Zhou Wen sighed. "Can't we build another one?" And Tianzuo frowned slightly. "I'm afraid it's very difficult. That woman doesn't know anything." Zhou Wen paused and said, "However, the Arch said that she has already vaguely sensed the existence of a certain inexplicable place. She firmly believes that's where the woman comes from. As long as she takes that final step, she can reach it. Therefore, she will participate in the Destiny Platform battle and use the Destiny Platform's power to take that final step. Don't tell me there aren't any clues regarding that device?" And Tianzuo still didn't give up. He had to figure out Jing's true identity before deciding if he should let Jing know about all of this. "You can ask her yourself." Zhou Wen waved his hand, and a ball of light the size of a glass ball appeared in front of Tianzuo and Sheng. The ball of light grew bigger and bigger until it was the size of a person. Through the ball of light, they could see the imprisoned woman inside. "Your daughter is in their hands. If you want to see your daughter, answer their questions properly." With that said, Zhou Wen turned around and left. He still had to see Zhou Lingfeng, and didn't wish to waste time here. "Young Master One, I'll walk you out." And Sheng hurriedly chased after him, leaving Tianzuo alone to interrogate the woman. "Young Master One, this is the central area that connects Luoyang region's entire dimensional zone. We call that fellow Optimus. If you encounter danger, you can come here. We can use Optimus to help you, but preparations take time. It's best if you give us 3 hours to prepare." And Sheng whispered to Zhou Wen. "What can it do?" Zhou Wen asked as he glanced at the metal column. "It can extract the dimensional zone's power from the entire Luoyang area, including Chess Mountain's energy. Although we haven't fully harnessed its full power, we have determined from our tests numbering over 1,000 that at full power, it would only need 3 hours to condense enough energy to kill an apocalypse grade. Of course, this is only a deduction. There might be some mistakes." And Sheng laughed dryly. "How did you extract Chess Mountain's power?" Zhou Wen asked in surprise. "It might be an involved explanation, but the rough explanation is that there are veins between all the dimensional zones on Earth. However, these veins aren't easy to find. We have more or less grasped the veins of the dimensional zones near Luoyang. We can use Optimus to extract the energy from these dimensional zones." And Sheng had already put it very simply, but Zhou Wen still didn't understand what the veins were. After separating from Sheng, Zhou Wen went to Zhou Lingfeng's residence. After finding him, he told him what he knew. After Zhou Lingfeng heard that, he said with a bitter smile, "I never expected there to be so many twists and turns. The real mastermind actually isn't this woman. Do you think she's Jing's mother?" Zhou Wen asked Zhou Lingfeng. And Jing had been personally carried out of the core by Zhou Lingfeng. He was most qualified to answer this question. I think so. Zhou Lingfeng gave an unexpected answer. Why? Zhou Wen didn't know what basis Zhou Lingfeng had for saying that. If what you said is true, then the woman and little Jing should be experimental subjects. Or rather, the real experimental subject is actually little Jing. The woman is only the person who sent little Jing over and completed the experiment. The woman and little Jing are very ordinary. Why did they choose such ordinary people? If little Jing is suitable as an experimental subject because of her congenital problems, then what about the woman? Unless there's some inevitable connection between them. Even if the woman discovers the truth, she will complete the experiment according to their plans. This can only be because of family ties, so I think the possibility of them being biological mother and daughter is very high. Zhou Lingfeng shared his thoughts. Zhou Wen thought for a moment, and felt that what Zhou Lingfeng said made sense. However, this was only speculation. He couldn't confirm that she was Jing's mother. Was the phone and Earth companion egg really accidentally picked up by my grandfather? Zhou Wen had always been suspicious of this. If it was really accidentally picked up by his grandfather, why couldn't others use the phone but him? It was really picked up from the well by accident. Otherwise? Do you think our ancestors are qualified to participate in such a battle? Zhou Lingfeng spread out his hands and said, Anyway, that's what my father told me. Zhou Wen thought that it made sense. Humans had no right to participate in the battle between the woman and Immortal Arch. Apart from the phone and Earth companion egg, was there anything else? Zhou Wen had come to Zhou Lingfeng mainly to find out if his grandfather had picked up the device that led to the research facility. Yes. Zhou Lingfeng thought for a moment and said, But I heard from your grandfather that the father-in-law of mine took it. Chapter 1878 Crystal. What was it? Zhou Wen hurriedly asked. I'm not too sure what it was. I've also asked your grandfather. He said that it was a round crystal. When he went to seek help from my father-in-law, it was taken away for research. He didn't return it to him. Zhou Lingfeng said after some thought. A round crystal? Was it spherical or circular? Zhou Wen's expression immediately turned odd. I remember your grandfather said it was circular. He gestured back then. It didn't look very big, Zhou Lingfeng said as he thought. Zhou Wen hurriedly rummaged through his things when he heard that. He remembered that there had indeed been such an item before. Back then, he had found a small metal slab in the temple in Zhuolu. The small metal slab was very similar to the large metal slab that chained Earth's companion beast. Zhou Wen had used the passcode left behind by the former principal to open the small metal slab. Inside the small metal slab was a circular crystal similar to the one Zhou Lingfeng had mentioned. It wasn't very big, about the size of the silver yuan data coin from many years back. Zhou Wen still remembered that one side of the crystal was engraved with an anchor, while the other side was engraved with a woman's side profile. As he hadn't figured out what use it had, he had thrown it in a corner after putting it away. If Zhou Lingfeng hadn't mentioned it, Zhou Wen would have forgotten about it. Soon, Zhou Wen found the circular crystal and handed it to Zhou Lingfeng. Take a look at this. After Zhou Lingfeng took it, he looked at it carefully. After a long while he said, I've never seen that thing before. I've only heard your grandfather describe it. It's been so long that I've almost forgotten it. Where did you get it from? Although Zhou Lingfeng couldn't figure out if the crystal slab was the item his grandfather had picked up, Zhou Wen felt that it was most likely the case. The metal slab was opened with the former principal's passcode. The things inside must have been placed in by the former principal, just like the trapped Earth companion beast. Furthermore, there was a symbol of the anchor and the woman's side profile on the crystal. It was definitely related to the true owner of the experimenter. This thing was most likely what Jing's mother had said could take her back. Zhou Wen took back the crystal slab and bade Zhou Lingfeng farewell before turning to leave. He wanted to know if it was the device the woman had mentioned. He just needed the woman to take a look to know. However, he was somewhat puzzled. He didn't sense any energy from it. He hadn't discovered anything special about it when studying it previously. How could such a thing take the woman back to where she came from? As he pondered, Zhou Wen returned to the yard where Optimus was. Shun was still waiting at the door. When he saw Zhou Wen, he hurriedly welcomed him. Before Shun could say a word, Zhou Wen said, Hasn't Tianzi finished his interrogation? It should be soon. Shun turned his head and looked inside. Come in. Tianzi's voice sounded. After Zhou Wen and Shun entered, they realized that the woman in the ball of light was crying her heart out. What's wrong with her? Zhou Wen asked with a frown. She doesn't know anything. She's just a puppet that had been used. Tianzi said with a nasty expression. Have you confirmed her identity? Zhou Wen actually wanted to ask if she was Jing's mother. I don't know. Tianzi said coldly before turning to leave, looking extremely impatient. I think it's highly likely. Otherwise, Overseer wouldn't be so vexed. And Sheng whispered to Zhou Wen before quickly chasing after Tianzhua. Zhou Wen watched Tianzhua leave before looking at the woman, who was still wailing. He didn't know what Tianzhua had said to her to turn her into this. "Why are you crying?" he asked the woman. The woman ignored him and kept crying. "Stop crying! Look at this!" Zhou Wen took out the crystal slab and waved it in front of the woman. When the woman saw the crystal slab, her crying stopped a little. However, she was still sobbing. She glanced at the crystal slab with an indifferent expression, as though she didn't care at all. Her eyes were gray and hollow. And Tianzhua, that bastard. What did he say to make the woman's heart turn so ashen? Zhou Wen pondered for a moment. Seeing that the woman wasn't looking at him, he said, "Don't you want to know the truth? Don't you want to know why they treated you like this? Don't you want to know if that's your daughter? Only by returning there can you know the truth." The woman's expression didn't change in the beginning, but towards the end, she gradually turned to look at Zhou Wen and the crystal slab in his hand. "Is this the device you mentioned?" Zhou Wen asked again. The woman nodded. This left Zhou Wen overjoyed. He never expected that the crucial item to resolve all the mysteries was already in his hands. "How do I use this thing?" he hurriedly asked. The woman's eyes were filled with tears as she shook her head and said, "It's useless. The experimenter has already been destroyed. It's useless even if we find it. We need the experimenter to activate it." Zhou Wen was immediately at a loss when he heard that. The energy system and technology in that world were completely different from this world. He had nowhere to start. "Is there no other way?" he asked with a frown. "I don't know. I only know that there's a device on experimenter that activates it. I don't understand how those devices work at all," the woman said in pain. Chapter 1879 Breakout. Don't I need to drip any blood? Zhou Wen was completely unprepared for this revelation. The woman hadn't mentioned that the combat suit could be connected to the phone, nor had she mentioned that the combat suit could directly activate the gaming phone. On second thought, he understood the reason. The woman hadn't completely activated the combat suit previously. She had only used the passcode to activate some of the defensive functions of the combat suit, not the core functions. Zhou Wen chose to enter the game, and felt a virtual screen appear in front of him. The dungeon icon from the phone appeared in front of him. After choosing the Destiny platform icon, the scene in front of him changed. He realized that he had arrived at the staircase. Is this the correct way to launch the phone games? There's no need to use the phone and control it with my mind. I can directly enter the game. The combat suit will also be worn on me. If I die like this, can I revive? Zhou Wen studied it for a while and realized that other than the combat suit, nothing from reality had been brought into the game. In other words, he was still using his avatar in game, but it was more three-dimensional and realistic than before. If his perceptive feedback in game was 50% previously, he was getting 100% now. It was almost no different from the real world. The various functions of the combat suit could also be used in game. Zhou Wen attempted to ascend the Destiny platform before using the combat suit to absorb the energy descending from it. The energy in the combat suit increased at a speed visible to the naked eye. After the Destiny baptism ended, the combat suit's energy reached 21%. Zhou Wen chose to quit the game and realized that the combat suit in reality also had 21% energy. That makes things easier. Zhou Wen entered the Destiny platform again and again, using the Destiny baptism to increase the combat suit's energy. After 6 consecutive attempts, the combat suit was finally fully charged. Zhou Wen didn't attempt to activate the crystal with the combat suit because he didn't plan on going to the world the woman came from. He had to resolve the matter at hand first. Advancing to the true apocalypse grade was his top priority. Otherwise, he wasn't 100% confident of surviving the subsequent Destiny battle. The Dharch and Wang Mingyuan were existences that had already reached the epitome of this world. Zhou Wen had to defeat them. After experiencing the advancement path of the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign, Zhou Wen now understood that the reason he couldn't advance to the apocalypse grade wasn't because he lacked energy. His own energy was enough to support the Lost Immortal Sutra's advancement to the apocalypse grade. The reason he hadn't advanced to the apocalypse grade was that he lacked a deeper understanding of the Lost Immortal Sutra. Thankfully, Wang Mingyuan's no rules and the features presented by the combat suit had already given Zhou Wen a deeper understanding of the Lost Immortal Sutra. With this understanding, Zhou Wen was already confident that he could directly advance to the apocalypse grade, but he didn't do so. This was because his understanding was only of the Lost Immortal Sutra, and the Lost Immortal Sutra came from another world. If he used these insights to advance to the apocalypse grade, it would actually be the Lost Immortal Sutra advancing to the apocalypse grade, not him advancing to the apocalypse grade. Many parts of the Lost Immortal Sutra were incompatible with this world. Zhou Wen's understanding of the world was also incompatible. Zhou Wen couldn't accept advancing to the apocalypse grade in such a state. He wanted to modify the Lost Immortal Sutra and make it his cornerstone, not advance it. The Lost Immortal Sutra was from another world. What Zhou Wen needed was a Lost Immortal Sutra he could call his own. Zhou Wen calmed down and studied the Lost Immortal Sutra daily, waiting for the day it was completely compatible with him. Time passed day by day. Occasionally, some creatures would attempt the Destiny platform, resulting in more than 10 names on the rankings. Dimensional zones around the world constantly broke out. Earth had almost become a paradise for dimensional creatures. In space, planets constantly exploded as all sorts of terrifying dimensional creatures emerged. Space became a new battlefield. All sorts of cosmic creatures evolved through killing in the universe. Every lifeform's starting point was at least a calamity. There were also many cosmic creatures that ascended Destiny platform. The number of Apocalypse-grade existences was even higher from the dimension. In this era, humans appeared increasingly puny and lacking in presence. If it wasn't for the few human names on the rankings, the world would have almost forgotten this race that was originally the ruler. Or rather, humans had never dominated anything. They had only been guarding Earth. For some reason, although the battle in space was intense, Earth remained ignored. No cosmic creature came to Earth. A human was fighting a dimensional creature in the wilderness, when he suddenly heard cracking sounds in the sky. Even the dimensional creature fighting him was stunned. It couldn't help but look up at the sky. With a glance, the person was immediately stunned. The blue sky seemed to crack like glass. The cracks crisscrossed in the air and constantly spread. It looked like the entire sky was about to shatter. "It's finally coming!" And Tianzua stood in front of Optimus and looked at the sky that was about to shatter. Behind him were rows of soldiers. "Overseer, everything is in order." And Sheng came to Tianzua's side and saluted. "Then let's begin," Tianzua said as he stared at the sky. In Luoyang City, everyone looked at the sky in horror. They watched as the cracks in the sky grew bigger and bigger, winding for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Wind. A strange wind rose from their sides, like a wind that came from underground into the sky. How could the wind blow from the ground to the sky? No one knew where the wind came from. However, the strange wind became more and more intense. Some of the smaller things on the ground were blown into the sky. A 2- or 3-year-old child was blown into the air by the wind because of an adult's carelessness. Furthermore, he rose higher and higher as though he was about to fly towards the growing crack in the sky. The child's parents yelled in horror as they jumped to grab their child, but they failed. Even they were about to be blown into the sky by the strange wind. The shop signs on the streets were torn apart by the wind and flew into the sky. The trees rustled as some small trees were uprooted and also flew into the sky. The wind. It grew stronger and stronger. Even the buildings began to tremble as though they would collapse at any moment. Similar situations happened all over the world. Apart from humans, who had long hidden in dimensional zones, there were humans swept into the sky everywhere outside. Many dimensional creatures were also swept into the sky. In the middle of Luoyang, a white pillar of light rose into the sky. It was like an erupting volcano as it spread out in the sky. The spiderweb-like light gradually transformed into an umbrella that blotted out the sky, enveloping the entire area of Luoyang. Bam! 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 When the light barrier fully enveloped Luoyang, the strange wind vanished. The things that were swept into the sky smashed down one after another. Cars fell from the sky, smashing holes in the ground as all sorts of things rained down. After a long while, when everything calmed down, the people hiding in refuge centers walked out and saw that the cracks in the sky outside the barrier were extremely huge. Boom! With a loud boom, the sky shattered like glass. The entire earth trembled as the clouds in the sky completely dissipated. Looking from afar, it was as though the entire earth was spewing out shockwaves. As this happened, all sorts of things on earth spewed out. Rubble, buildings, cars, machinery, icebergs, trees, all sorts of things were spewed into space. Apart from the dimensional zones, everywhere on earth looked apocalyptic. The cities were completely destroyed. All human civilization was destroyed and thrown into space, leaving behind huge craters. Oxygen was almost depleted. Only the ancient buildings in the dimensional zones remained standing, becoming humanity's last sanctuary. Everyone looked at the apocalyptic scene in horror as they looked up at the sky uneasily. "We can finally come over!" A terrifying huge creature appeared in the sky, its shadow enveloping most of Earth. The creature grew bigger and bigger, looking even bigger than the entire planet. It was descending towards Earth. Everyone was extremely alarmed. Such a huge creature made Earth seem like a ball in front of it. If it descended, it would probably crush the entire planet. Chapter 1880. I agree. The monster stopped outside Earth. The people under its shadow were uneasy, but at that moment, another terrifying huge figure appeared in the sky. It was a monster that blotted out the sky like a shadow. One could only see a huge canine head from the shadow. Could this be the legendary moon-eating heavenly dog? Everyone was alarmed. Two terrifying creatures were simultaneously coveting Earth. Earth was no different from a fragile jelly bean in front of him. What was even more despairing was that a third terrifying figure appeared. A rainbow phoenix-like dimensional creature blotted out a portion of the sky, illuminating the entire world like stained glass. Ignoring ordinary people, even the experts of the various families were trembling. They had already sensed how terrifying and powerful those creatures were. Any one of them was an existence that humans could not match. Even if humans on Earth used all their strength, it would probably be difficult for them to defeat any of them. What was worse was that terrifying figures constantly appeared and surrounded Earth from all directions. Earth was like the pearl in the game of two dragons. However, dragons weren't outside, but 9 extremely terrifying monsters in different poses. Is Earth about to be destroyed? Everyone couldn't help but feel despair. Emergency countermeasures were discussed among the major factions, but to no avail. If there was only one terrifying creature, they might still stand a chance by giving their all. Someone could even risk their life to lure the terrifying creature away. Now that 9 terrifying creatures were surrounding Earth, each with the ability to destroy Earth, all that was left was despair. On Earth, a creature tore through the air. It was a mountain-like Cyclops. A mysterious light erupted from the Cyclops' body as he blasted at one of the terrifying creatures. As its body rose into space, the light intensified as though it could penetrate the sky. Waves shook the ancient buildings and ancient trees in the mountains protected by dimensional zones on Earth. Everyone was pleasantly surprised. They never expected a breakout creature from Earth would stand up to resist the foreign enemies. Furthermore, the Cyclops' strength was unimaginably powerful, as though it was an apocalypse-grade existence. That Cyclops. I seem to have heard of him somewhere. He should be an invincible existence in myths. Someone recognized the identity of the Cyclops, and had a sliver of hope. If the Cyclops could kill the invading monsters, or produce an internecine outcome, Earth would still have a chance of survival. You monsters, don't underestimate Earth. Earth has many powerful gods guarding it. That's our god! In a temple-like dimensional zone, a boy clenched his fists with an excited expression. Beside the boy, many people cheered for the Cyclops excitedly. He was the strongest god in their race's myths and legends. The Cyclops charged in front of one of the monsters, with an extremely intense light. Everyone looked forward to a stunning battle. They prayed for the Cyclops, praying that it could kill all the monsters. However, in the next second, everyone was collectively petrified. The monster yawned and extended its claws. Like a glass ball, it flicked a claw at the Cyclops that was covered in divine light. It exploded the Cyclops' body, as though it was flicking an ant to death. Streams of light and flesh splattered like blood-colored fireworks. Dead. He died just like that. Everyone felt their bodies run cold. Even their despair seemed to freeze. The boy was already dumbfounded, as though he couldn't believe what he had seen. His faith crumbled. Without hope, how could there be despair? Anyone else? The monster's voice sent shockwaves across the ground like a tsunami, causing the ground to churn like waves. It was extremely terrifying. Just as everyone was feeling horrified, they saw a figure shoot into the sky and meet the terrifying monsters. Soon, people saw what the figure was. The figure was none other than the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign. He had already arrived in space, and stood in front of the monster that had blasted apart the Cyclops with a finger. Human sovereign has finally appeared. Kill those monsters. How could I have forgotten? We still have human sovereign. He will definitely be able to defeat those monsters and save Earth. Go for it, human sovereign. No one was in the mood to speak nonsense. They only hoped that Ninth Heaven's human sovereign could defeat the monster. After all, this concerned their survival. To everyone's surprise, after the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign appeared, he didn't charge straight at the monster to fight. He stopped after rushing into space, and raised something in his hand. It was too far away. Ordinary people could only see the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign shimmering in the sky like a star. They couldn't see what was happening. Only some human powerhouses could see the situation clearly. They saw the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign holding a tablet. The Ninth Heaven's human sovereign showed the monsters the tablet. The originally aggressive monsters suddenly deflated like a balloon. Their arrogant attitudes instantly vanished. One of the monsters even had its ears drooping. Yes! Master! Nobody knew what had happened. They only saw the 9 monsters bow at the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign like obedient puppies. Then, they quickly shrank and obediently followed behind the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign. They flew towards Earth and vanished in the blink of an eye. After waiting for a long time, nothing happened. It was as though the 9 monsters had never come. What's the meaning of this? Master! What master? Are you stupid? They bow to the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign and call him master. Human Sovereign is their master from a long time ago. Holy sh*t, is Human Sovereign already that strong? He made such terrifying creatures acknowledge him as master with just an avatar. I've long known that no matter what era it is, Human Sovereign is invincible. Any dimensional creature has to obediently call him daddy. That doesn't make sense. That Cyclops is a mythical boss after all. Yet, he was so easily killed. How did such an existence become so obedient after seeing Human Sovereign? Everyone talked excitedly. At that moment, the 9 devil beasts were following the 9th Heaven's Human Sovereign into Guide Ancient City. They had suppressed their bodies and turned into the size of ordinary humans. Soon, they arrived at Zhou Wen's yard. The tablet Zhou Wen had made the 9th Heaven's Human Sovereign show them was a video recorded by Demonic Neonate. It was naturally Demonic Neonate who had given them the order. When the 9 Tribulations Devil Seed saw Zhou Wen, it immediately said with a nasal voice, "Kid, although we once fought together, that's a separate matter. If you don't release Master, we won't let you off either. I agreed to let her regain her past memories," Zhou Wen said indifferently, as he interrupted the 9 Tribulations Devil Seed. The 9 devil pets were taken aback. The 9 Tribulations Devil Seed opened its mouth, but it didn't know what to say. The words it had prepared previously didn't seem to be needed. They originally imagined that Zhou Wen wouldn't agree to let their master retrieve her memories so easily. They never expected things to go so smoothly. Chapter 1881 The Devil King's Return. Zhou Wen had already thought it through. Since it was only a matter of time before Demonic Neonate regained her memories, perhaps it wasn't a bad thing to let her regain her memories now. Instead of letting her recall those things herself, it was better to take the initiative to give her a chance. In theory, surrendering was usually met with leniency. Furthermore, the Devil King was also the person who was most likely to know the truth about the other world. She had studied everything the woman had brought with her, and had expended a huge amount of effort and energy. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been defeated by the combined forces of the myriad races. He didn't believe that the Devil King hadn't figured out anything after sacrificing so much. I can agree with Demonic Neonate getting back her memories, but the premise is that she does so willingly. Otherwise, no one is to force her, Zhou Wen said to the 9 devil pets. How can we agree? Master doesn't have any memories now. If she isn't willing to accept, the 9 Tribulations Devil Seed immediately objected. I've said it before. If she's unwilling to accept it, no one is to force her, Zhou Wen said indifferently. Who gave you the courage to be so presumptuous in front of us? Don't think that you have the right to be presumptuous just because you fought alongside us, the 9 Tribulations Devil Seed said coldly. Zhou Wen didn't say a word, as the 9th Heaven's Human Sovereign behind him grabbed the 9 Tribulations Devil Seed with one hand. You are tempting fate. The 9 Tribulations Devil Seed was enraged as it swiped its claw at the 9th Heaven's Human Sovereign's palm and collided with it. 9th Heaven's Human Sovereign grabbed the claws of the 9 Tribulations Devil Seed as 2 pure physical forces erupted. Bang! The 9 Tribulations Devil Seed bit its hind legs and was forced to kneel on the ground by the power of the 9th Heaven's Human Sovereign. No matter how much strength it exerted, it couldn't stand up. 9 Tribulations Devil Seed was astounded. The other 8 devil pets' expressions changed as well. 9 Tribulations Devil Seed's pure strength could be said to be the hard ceiling of any apocalypse-grade creature. In a confrontation of pure strength, it was suppressed to the point of being unable to counterattack. Just this strength alone could put him at the top anywhere in the world. After the 9th Heaven's Human Sovereign retreated behind Zhou Wen, 9 Tribulations Devil Seed roared and was about to pounce at Zhou Wen, but it was stopped by a mortal slaughtering ancient subordinate. Zhou Wen, there's no point in stopping us. It's only a matter of time before Master awakens, a mortal slaying ancient subordinate said to Zhou Wen. Even if it's only for a second, no one is to force her to do something she's unwilling to do, Zhou Wen said. Kid, do you really think we don't dare kill you? The devilish Trichilio Eater said sarcastically. Zhou Wen swept his gaze across the faces of the 9 devil pets and said calmly, You are still alive because you were Demonic Neonate's former subordinates. Otherwise, you would have been corpses the moment you arrived outside Earth. The 9 devil pets were enraged when they heard that. The Hell Gatekeeper dog transformed into a black shadow, wanting to tear through the room and devour the entire Guide Ancient City. However, to its surprise, it couldn't break out of the tiny room. The bubble-like light ball enveloped the entire room. The room was shattered, but the 9 devil pets were trapped in the ball of light. No matter how much strength they unleashed, they were unable to shatter the ball of light. Zhou Wen only stood outside the ball of light and looked at them calmly. The 9 devil pets were horrified. Even the mortal slaughtering ancient subordinate's 3 slashes couldn't leave a mark on the ball of light. No matter how the ball of light twisted and changed, it couldn't burst. The 9 devil pets charged left and right in vain. The ball of light was mainly based on the Chaos Egg's characteristics, and had fused with several other powers. Under Zhou Wen's control, it was almost an immortal existence. Even the combined forces of the 9 devil pets would find it difficult to crack it. The 9 devil pets were alarmed. The way they looked at Zhou Wen was different. Such a power he casually conjured could trap them without them realizing it. Perhaps only the Devil King from back then could be so terrifying. This human has actually become this powerful. Only then did they realize that Zhou Wen wasn't acting arrogantly. He had the ability to kill them. The 9th Heaven's human sovereign's eyes flashed as the ball of light immediately shattered. The 9 devil pets fell out of the ball of light. Then, the 9th Heaven's human sovereign swept his gaze across the shattered house. The house quickly returned to its original state, as though it was a video played in reverse. This person is too terrifying. The 9 Tribulations Devil Seed glared at Zhou Wen. Although its face was filled with anger, it didn't dare flare up at him again. Whether demonic neonate is willing to retrieve her past memories is up to her. It's not up to you to decide. When Zhou Wen said those words, the 9 devil pets fell silent. No one said anything else. In that case, please let our master decide. Immortal slaughtering ancient subordinate sighed. He knew that the human in front of him had terrifying strength that was probably in no way inferior to the Devil King and Immortal the Arch of yesteryear. Zhou Wen summoned demonic neonate. When the 9 devil pets saw demonic neonate, they immediately greeted her. Demonic neonate looked at them coldly without any response. Before she makes her choice, please shut up. Zhou Wen took out the blob of devil spirits he had obtained and placed them in front of demonic neonate. Do you want it? Master, you must. The 9 Tribulations Devil Seed anxiously wanted to persuade her, but it suddenly felt a tremendous force rush at it. The 9th Heaven's human sovereign appeared in front of it, and sent it flying with a slap. The 9 Tribulations Devil Seed slammed through the wall, and fell to the ground outside. It wasn't a big deal. It jumped up angrily, and wanted to rush into the room, but when it saw Zhou Wen's cold gaze, its heart skipped a beat. It subconsciously stopped, and didn't dare enter. The other devil pets thought at the same time, that was close. Thankfully, 9 Tribulations' mouth was faster than mine. Otherwise, I would have been the one sent flying. Demonic neonate looked at the devil spirit in Zhou Wen's hand, and nodded slightly under the expectant gazes of the 9 devil pets. The 9 devil pets were immediately overjoyed, as they cried tears of joy. You don't think it will harm you? Zhou Wen asked again. The 9 Tribulations Devil Seed opened its mouth, about to criticize Zhou Wen, but it seemed to realize something. It hurriedly turned to look at the 9th Heaven's human sovereign, and saw it staring at it. It hurriedly closed its mouth. Demonic neonate nodded slightly again, before Zhou Wen released his grip on the devil spirit. Since demonic neonate was certain that the devil spirit wasn't harmful to her, Zhou Wen didn't stop her, and allowed the devil spirit in his hand to fly towards her. After the devil spirit escaped his grasp, it immediately charged at demonic neonate's forehead. Demonic neonate didn't dodge, and allowed the devil spirit to land on her glabella, transforming into a black mark. Seeing that Zhou Wen had indeed kept his promise, and allowed their master to retrieve the devil spirit, none of them hesitated any further. Every devil pet took out another devil spirit. Together with the one Zhou Wen had previously snatched, there were a total of 9 devil spirits. The other devil spirits automatically flew towards demonic neonate's glabella and fused into it, leaving a mysterious symbol there. Demonic neonate's expression changed constantly. All sorts of strange scenes seemed to flow rapidly in her eyes. At the same time, the mysterious mark began to burn with flames. The dark purple flames enveloped demonic neonate's body and quickly devoured it. Furthermore, the flames burned brighter and brighter. Demonic neonate could no longer be seen. The dark purple flames were extremely terrifying, but they didn't have a temperature, nor did they affect anything around them. The 9 devil pets looked at the flames with delight. Zhou Wen felt uneasy. After demonic neonate obtains the memories of her previous life, will she still acknowledge me? She's my companion beast. Even if she doesn't acknowledge me, she shouldn't be able to renege on our agreement, right? Zhou Wen was somewhat worried. When the dark purple flames gathered, demonic neonate's figure gradually appeared from the flames. First, it was a pair of long, slender legs, followed by exaggerated curves. Even the black-purple robe couldn't hide her graceful figure. When all the mystical purple flames were sucked into the mysterious mark, demonic neonate's cold, exquisite, extremely beautiful, but daunting face finally appeared in front of Zhou Wen. Noble, beautiful, elegant, cold, mysterious, holy, sexy, evil, and other conflicting adjectives were perfectly compatible with this woman. A woman in a black and purple robe with long hair that reached her ankles. Her eyes were like a mysterious starry sky, and her skin was as white as milk. As her eyes darted around, she made the entire world seem to pale in comparison. She stood quietly in front of Zhou Wen. You deserve death. The woman looked at Zhou Wen and enunciated each and every word. Chapter 1882 The Devil King. Indeed, She still hates me for killing her previous self? Zhou looked at Demonic Neonate, who could no longer be called Demonic Neonate, and was momentarily discouraged. He had been with Demonic Neonate for so long that his ties with her ran deep. He found it difficult to accept suddenly becoming her enemy. He originally imagined that Demonic Neonate would take into account their past relationship and not make things difficult for him, but from her words, she probably hated Zhou to the core and wanted him dead. That's right. I killed her. It's normal if she wants to kill me. Zhou looked at Demonic Neonate, but he didn't plan on sitting idle. With a thought, he wanted to unsummon Demonic Neonate. No matter what Demonic Neonate became, she was still Zhou companion beast. In theory, she had to obey his orders. However, with a thought from Zhou, Demonic Neonate stood there motionless, unable to be unsummoned. Zhou wasn't too surprised because Demonic Neonate could freely enter and exit without his orders. This situation wasn't strange. Master, you're finally back! Skyfiend Consort was pleasantly surprised. She curtailed her seductiveness and solemnly bowed at Demonic Neonate. The other devil pets also called out their master's name in unison and bowed at Demonic Neonate. Zhou was envious. After countless years, the 9 devil pets remained loyal to Demonic Neonate. This loyalty wasn't something that could be obtained simply through force. Demonic Neonate gestured slightly before the 9 devil pets got up one after another. Their faces were filled with joy. The Hell Gatekeeper dog was like a husky, as it lay at Demonic Neonate's feet. It looked like it wanted Demonic Neonate to stroke its head. It's been hard on you, Demonic Neonate whispered. Her voice seemed to have an indescribable charm that made one feel at ease. Zhou had always heard of how cruel the Devil King was. When he really saw her, he couldn't tell how cruel she was, nor could he tell that she had any evil aura. Master has been reborn. We swear to follow Master, and will definitely help Master rule the world. The 9 devil pets were extremely excited. They wanted to immediately follow the Devil King and fight for supremacy. Demonic Neonate nodded slightly, but she looked at Zhou with an indifferent gaze before walking towards him. Zhou opened his mouth to say something, but he realized that he couldn't even move his lips. At that moment, time and space seemed to freeze. Everything was frozen there. Only Demonic Neonate kept walking like a demoness against the river of time. Zhou was alarmed as he frantically activated the 9th Heaven's Human Sovereign and lost Immortal Sutra, but he felt as though everything had been frozen. The 9th Heaven's Human Sovereign stood there without any reaction. His body was like a boulder without any energy flowing. Zhou could only watch as Demonic Neonate walked in front of him and extended her slender fingers towards his cheek. If he could still sweat, his forehead would probably be covered in cold sweat. Unfortunately, no sweat came out of him. It's over, it's over. Indeed, one can't be arrogant. I thought that with my present strength, even if the Devil King revived, I would have the ability to fight her. I never expected the Devil King to be so powerful. I don't even have the chance to resist. Zhou wasn't in the mood to praise the Devil King's strength. His mind raced as he thought of a way to escape. However, it was difficult for him to even speak. It was impossible for him to convince the Devil King by playing the emotional card. Just as the Devil King's finger was about to touch him, a golden light suddenly erupted from Zhou's ear. Terrifying golden energy gathered in front of him, turning into a wild and handsome blonde man who stood in front of him. Truth Listener has completed its evolution. Zhou was overjoyed. Truth Listener had undoubtedly reached the Apocalypse grade. To be able to break the suppression of the Devil King's power, it was obvious that his strength was no ordinary existence even at the Apocalypse grade. At the very least, it was above the 9 devil pets. It was even stronger than the 9th Heaven's Human Sovereign. The 9 devil pets and the 9th Heaven's Human Sovereign seemed to be frozen, but Truth Listener could move freely. This was enough to explain many things. The golden light on Truth Listener's body erupted crazily. With strength capable of tearing through space, it threw a punch at the Devil King. This punch didn't have any nomological powers to speak of, nor was there any technique. It was pure, unadulterated strength that was unimaginably powerful. Space shattered like glass under this punch, collapsing into a black hole. Such powerful strength was much stronger than the 9 tribulations devil seed that cultivated its body as well. Even Zhou didn't dare take the punch head-on. Yet, the Devil King ignored such a terrifying punch. With just a glance at Truth Listener's body seemed to be struck by an invisible sledgehammer as it flew backward and slammed into the wall. He sprawled against the wall like a fly that had been slapped against the wall, unable to move. Zhou never expected such an outcome. His body turned cold as his heart sank. In the next second, the Devil King's finger landed on Zhou's cheek, causing him to shiver. My life is over, Zhou sighed inwardly. The Devil King's slender and round fingers slid across Zhou's face and stopped at his chin. Then, she raised his chin slightly, causing Zhou to look up. The Devil King looked at Zhou Wen with a faint smile. Her voice, that seemed to travel across spacetime, sounded in his ears. You wanted to be my daddy. Zhou Wen broke out into a cold sweat. He hated his younger self for saying those words. He regretted it so much that he wanted to slap himself. In the past, he had found demonic neonate adorable. After spending some time with her, he had subconsciously raised her like a daughter. Back then, demonic neonate couldn't speak. Zhou Wen had made demonic neonate call him daddy, as though he was teaching a daughter how to speak. Now that he thought about it, Zhou Wen could only be glad that demonic neonate couldn't speak back then, and hadn't really called him daddy. If she had done so, death for him would probably have been an extravagant hope today. Zhou Wen wanted to defend himself, but he couldn't say a word. The Devil King had no intention of listening to his excuses. She exerted more strength with her fingers, raising Zhou Wen's head even higher. You even got me to serve you tea. The Devil King's expression turned even stranger. She was clearly smiling, but Zhou Wen didn't feel any warmth. His heart had already turned cold. How would I know that such a day would come? You're a companion beast. Was I to do it myself when there was you to command around? I also wanted you to experience the joy of being a human. Thankfully you ignored me back then. You didn't do anything, so why are you blaming it on me now? Zhou Wen criticized inwardly. When you encountered danger, you even got me to help you fend off the calamity. Every word the Devil King said was like a heavy hammer that sent Zhou Wen's heart deeper into hell. It's over, it's over. I'm afraid dying today would be extravagant. Zhou Wen had already given up struggling. All he wanted was a quick death. Indeed, after the Devil King recounted Zhou Wen's crimes, she added, You really deserve death. You wish for death? Not so easy. With that said, Zhou Wen wanted to close his eyes and wait for the fate of being tortured to death, but he felt his chin being pinched by the Devil King. Then, the red lips imprinted on his lips. A strange force instantly spread through Zhou Wen's body. Chapter 1883 Advancement to the Apocalypse Grade. Zhou Wen felt his mind explode as his consciousness entered that strange space. In the void, the woman who had appeared in Zhou Wen's dream floated in the air with the Devil King. How dare you stand in front of me? The Sai of the King stared coldly at the Devil King. The Devil King only glanced at her, seemingly in no mood to speak. Her eyes were filled with contempt. The Sai of the King was infuriated. With a wave of her arm, infinite light immediately appeared in the void. Light shone over the Devil King from all directions, as though it wanted to melt the entire world to become part of the light. However, when the layers of light arrived in front of the Devil King, it seemed to freeze. In the next second, with a gaze from the Devil King, all the light shattered. The entire void space shattered with the light. The Sai of the King shattered as well. Cracks appeared on her body, leaving her face filled with surprise. You took that step. Sai of the King's figure began to separate, and was about to shatter like glass. She looked at the Devil King with an odd expression. The Devil King ignored her, and only watched indifferently, as the Sai of the King cracked. Crack! The Sai of the King's body shattered along with the entire void, turning into fragments that began to soar. We will meet again. The Sai of the King's voice gradually dissipated in the shattered void. You're just a wisp of consciousness. Are you even worthy? The Devil King said coldly. Zhou Wen felt his brain and heart ache terribly. It wasn't just his brain and heart. It was as though every cell in his body was being ripped apart, making him almost go berserk from the pain. He didn't wish to experience this feeling a second time in his life. It was as though someone had pulled out his blood vessels or bones. Even his brain felt like it had been plucked out piece by piece. Pain. There was nothing but pain. Then, there was an endless emptiness. It was as though something important had been pulled out of his body. His soul felt like it was about to fly out of his body. Just as he thought his soul was about to return to hell, a strange energy suddenly surged out of his body. The power didn't come from the Devil King or any external force, but from Zhou Wen's body. It was like a seed that had been planted. After thousands of years, it suddenly sprouted and crawled out from the ground, revealing a sprout filled with vitality. Every cell surged with vitality, gradually awakening his body. The emptiness was gradually filled, and he was even more energetic than before. Zhou Wen felt an unprecedented sense of relief. It was as though the shackles on his body had been unlocked as he rushed out of prison to be reborn. When he opened his eyes, he realized that the Devil King in front of him had vanished. The 9 devil pets had also vanished. Everything that had happened seemed like a dream, as though it had never happened. Zhou Wen naturally knew that it wasn't a dream. He hurriedly checked his companion beast information. Demonic Neonate's name had vanished from the companion beast list, but he was surprised to see Devil King's name. Devil King? However, all the information on the Devil King was question marks. There was nothing to be seen. Even she didn't even know what level she was at. Zhou Wen's heart stirred as he hurriedly checked his information. The original life providence was no longer Sai of the King, but a new name, Human Sovereign. Zhou Wen wore a complicated expression. He roughly understood what had happened. Previously, the Sai of the King life providence was transformed from the soul he absorbed from the Lost Immortal Sutra. Or rather, it was transformed from the woman in the Lost Immortal Sutra. It wasn't his true life providence. Chapter 1884 The Battle of Destiny begins. The person's entire body was wrapped in a gray robe, and his face couldn't be seen at all. One couldn't even tell if he was a man or a woman. The person stood on the staircase and walked forward step by step. He didn't take much effort to reach the Destiny platform. Terrifying energy gathered on the person's body, which resembled a huge bottomless pit. No amount of energy seemed to be able to make him react at all. The entire process could be said to be uneventful. The scene switched to the rankings, and at the bottom of the rankings, the words, Holy God, appeared. This attempt was somewhat baffling. One didn't even know if Holy God was a human or a god before it ended. All kinds of monsters have appeared. Holy God is also participating in the Destiny battle. Who is he? Zhou Wen looked at the name on the rankings, and couldn't help but frown slightly. This was because after Zhou Wen learned of the origins of the Holy Land, he had always suspected that Holy God was the former principal, but they were only his suspicions that he couldn't confirm. If it was really the former principal, 3 of the 4 people who had entered Chess Mountain were to participate in the Destiny battle. Only Zhou Wen's father hadn't participated. Just as Zhou Wen was pondering over it, he suddenly saw the cube light up again. Another person had ascended the staircase. When he saw them appear on the cube's screen, his heart couldn't help but contract. A figure enveloped by an immortal glow stood on the staircase, and immortal light cascaded down from the figure. Zhou Wen could sense that it was definitely the Darch. She's free. Although he had long known that such a day would come, Zhou Wen still paid attention when it happened. Up to now, there were a total of 2 people who Zhou Wen was completely unable to match. One was demonic Neonate, who had recovered her Devil King body, and the other was the Darch. Although Wang Mingyuan was very strong, he wasn't so strong that it exceeded Zhou Wen's comprehension. The Devil King and the Darch had an incomprehensible strength. Of course, that was in the past. Now that Zhou Wen had advanced to the Apocalypse grade, he could fight the 2 of them head-on. He would only know after they started fighting. Now, Zhou Wen's understanding of strength had reached a deeper level. He already had some concept of the Devil King and the Thearch's strength. Alright, I have to resolve everything after all. Let's end this all at the Destiny battle. Zhou Wen took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. He stared at the cube's screen, hoping to see how the Darch would ascend Destiny platform. The various factions were also paying attention to the situation on the Destiny platform. Everyone seemed to realize that the cube's battle was somewhat different. Even though people didn't know the importance of the Destiny battle, they felt that something was different. The Darch stood on the first stone step and wasn't in a rush to walk up. She only looked at the staircase calmly. Time ticked by. Some people were puzzled as to why she wasn't walking. Did she not have the ability to walk up? Suddenly, the stone steps under the Thearch's feet moved, but the stone steps didn't fall into the bottomless abyss. Instead, they rose. The Darch stood on the stone steps as though she was ascending. The stone steps rose into the sky and slowly headed for Destiny platform. This scene stunned all the creatures in the world. Even the strongest human sovereign, they acknowledged, could only ignore the rules of the staircase and move freely on it, but not reverse the rules like her. The stone steps slowly rose to the Destiny platform. This wasn't taking the staircase at all. It was more like taking the elevator. Endless energy gathered in the sky like an endless sea that blotted out the sky. Everyone waited for the phenomenon of the energy landing, but they were alarmed to see the immortal glow on the Thearch's body bloom. A gorgeous and magical glow illuminated the sky, instantly melting the sea of clouds that filled the sky. All the energy was scattered, revealing a blue-white void. Arrogance! Her arrogance had no limits. Others received the baptism of destiny, but the Darch wiped it out. My life is up to me, not the heavens. Who has the right to determine her limits, and what right did it have to decide her destiny? Immortal. The cube's ranking appeared. There was only one word on it. This simple word appeared like an insurmountable mountain, but also like a sky that suppressed everything. It was unreachable. Among the immortals, countless immortals silently raised their left hands towards the cube's screen with 2 fingers against their foreheads. This was the highest etiquette among the immortals, representing their loyalty to their monarch. Their monarch had returned. From this moment on, the immortals were no longer the fallen immortals, but the strongest immortals who had once reigned supreme. Everyone that's supposed to be here is here. On the Divine Mountain, Wang Mingyuan stared at the word immortal on the rankings with a burning gaze, as though he was looking forward to something. How troublesome. Holy God wore a strange expression as he frowned at the word. Immortal. Chapter 1885 Holy God. There was no scene of the Destiny platform on the cube's screen. There was only a blob of flickering light. The light was like a ghost, but it also seemed to be some constantly changing energy. As the light changed, a cold voice sounded from the cube. The victor of the Destiny battle shall be king. You will become the new dimensional king. The entire world is the battlefield of the Destiny battle. There are no rules. The creature that survives to the end is the new dimensional king. All creatures of the myriad worlds, look forward to your new king. After the voice came to an end, the cube's scene changed, splitting into many monitor-like scenes. Every scene showed a creature participating in the Destiny battle. All the creatures that participated in the Destiny battle were randomly sent to a corner of the dimensional airspace. There were no other creatures nearby, so no battle happened. People searched for the person they wanted to see from the screens. Most of them cast their gazes at Zhou. At that moment, Zhou wasn't using his companion beasts. He was wearing the combat suit, and his face was still his original appearance. The cube's voice reached every end of the dimensional airspace. He knew the rules, but the dimensional airspace was almost endless. It wasn't easy for any of the 10+ creatures to encounter one of them. It was no different from searching for a needle in a haystack. However, this wasn't a problem for certain terrifying existences. Ignoring the fact that it was in the dimensional airspace, even if one was hidden at the end of the universe, they would definitely be able to find them if they wanted to. Zhou gave it a try. It wasn't difficult to leave the dimensional airspace, but the battlefield of the Destiny battle was the entire world. It was useless even if he left the dimensional airspace. Unless all living creatures who participated in the Destiny battle gave up the throne, the Destiny battle would continue until only one creature remained standing. Wang Mingyuan, who was dressed in white with crystal horns on his head, appeared in front of an apocalypse creature. The apocalypse creature erupted with terrifying energy, hoping to repel Wang Mingyuan. The 4 immortal swords around Wang Mingyuan flew out and instantly killed the apocalypse creature. The screen depicting the apocalypse creature turned black as its name on the rankings vanished. The Darch took a step forward and arrived on the Destiny platform. She stood on it as though she was waiting for something. She had no intention of leaving to find the others. Soon, a gray-robed figure arrived in front of Destiny platform. He walked up the stone steps and arrived in front of the Darch. As Zhou hadn't started fighting, this drew the attention of many. The Thearka's invincible stance made many people believe that she was the strongest existence on the rankings. Holy God was also a very mysterious figure. They looked forward to whatever sparks would arise from their battle. The Darch, you shouldn't have come, Holy God said slowly, as he looked at the Darch. Only then did people realize that the supreme existence with the word, immortal, wasn't named immortal. That sounds familiar, the Darch said with piqued interest. Holy God smiled and said, back in front of Chess Mountain, you said something similar to the 4 of us. However, today, I'll return those words to you. This is interesting. Why shouldn't I be here? The Darch said indifferently. Although I didn't see your true body back then, I would have died a long time ago before reaching that ship without your secret help. It can be said that you saved my life, Holy God said. We had shared interests, the Darch said casually. You have your plans, but to me, the truth is the truth. No matter what the motive is, you saved my life. Holy God sighed and said, you were once the monarch of the dimension. This position is meaningless to you. Why do you have to get involved in this mess? From the looks of it, you found the answer you wanted on that ship. The Thearka's expression remained unchanged. I did get something. After years of research, I've already seen the true colors of this world. That's why I said that you shouldn't have come. Participating in the Destiny battle means there's no room for retreat. I can't choose not to be your enemy, Holy God said. You want to tell me that no opponents are worthy of you in this world, including me, right? The Darch remained calm as she spoke slowly. Some people pursue strength, while others study the rules. Those who pursue strength might be temporarily strong, but only those who control the rules can control the entire world, Holy God said. Are you sure you already control the rules of this world? The Darch said with a faint smile. Yes, I've already controlled the rules of this world. In my eyes, there are no more secrets in this world. All of this is thanks to you, so I really don't want to be your enemy, but I have no choice now, Holy God said with a sigh. So your way of repaying me is to be the first to come to me? The Darch laughed. Holy God wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by the Darch. It's useless to say anything else. Let me see what the world you control is like. Pardon me, Holy God said as he extended his palm. A black mass slowly condensed in his palm. The black matter was like smoke and light as it distorted and deformed in Holy God's palm. Soon, it transformed into the shape of the cube. What was even stranger was that although the cube was only the size of a palm, it was identical to the cubes scattered around the world. There was even a scene on the cube. In those scenes were the images of creatures participating in the Destiny battle. Even the blackened scenes were identical. The cube in his hand was a mini version of the cube. The mini cube floated in front of Holy God. Holy God extended a finger and tapped a certain scene. The scene was of an apocalypse-grade creature. Its body was like a dragon as it searched for other participating creatures in the dimensional airspace. Holy God tapped his finger on the scene that belonged to it, and the scene immediately turned black. Everyone was alarmed to discover the disappearance of the creature's names on the rankings. Although no one saw what had happened to the apocalypse creature, they could imagine its outcome. Everyone was horrified. Holy God could wipe out people who participated in the Destiny battle via controlling the cube. This was practically cheating. It was like a GM with the authority to ban players entering the arena to fight other players. Equipment or stats were of no use. The account was banned, and even the data in-game was deleted. Chapter 1886 Redefining the Rules. The Dharch, I'll send you on your way, Holy God said, as he pointed at the grid that belonged to the Dharch. The Dharch only looked at Holy God silently, without doing anything. It was as though she didn't plan on killing him before his finger landed on the screen. Holy God tapped the screen with his finger, and the scene immediately flashed. The hearts of those who were staring at the screen skipped a beat, imagining that the Dharch was about to die. The scene between Holy God and the Dharch overlapped. Even if the Thearch's scene went black, one could see how the Dharch died through Holy God's scene. Unexpectedly, after the Thearch's screen was tapped by Holy God, it only flashed for a moment. It didn't turn black. Holy God's expression changed drastically as he quickly tapped a few more times. However, the screen only flashed a few times without any inkling of going black. Should I say that you are too confident, or should I say that you are too lacking in confidence? The Dharch looked at Holy God and said indifferently, Your so-called understanding of the rules of this world is only your understanding of this world. You are too confident in those things, but you don't have confidence in your world. What a pitiful and tragic fellow. As a part of this world, when you deny this world, you are denying yourself. By denying yourself, how can you truly control the power of this world? You were abandoned by the world the moment you gave up on this world. Holy God retreated in horror. He never expected that the power he had studied for so long, a power he believed made him in control of everything, to be nothing but a joke in the Thearch's eyes. Come! The Dharch whispered. The black mini-cube in Holy God's hand vanished into thin air, and appeared in front of the Dharch. The Dharch didn't look at Holy God. She only looked at the cube in front of her with interest. She extended a finger and pointed at the screen of Holy God. Holy God gathered his strength and wanted to summon the cube back, but the cube seemed to have severed its connection with him. It didn't react at all as it floated quietly in front of the Dharch. Holy God's expression changed as his figure traveled a strange trajectory and vanished in front of the Dharch. In the next moment, Holy God appeared in front of Zhou Wen. Almost at the same time, the Dharch pressed her finger on the screen that belonged to Holy God. The scene flashed for a moment, but it didn't turn black. However, the scene dimmed significantly, and was rapidly dimming. Holy God's body was like a reflection in a trick mirror. It strangely distorted and flickered as though it would disappear at any moment. Zhou Wen frowned just as he saw Holy God suddenly appear in front of him, only to see Holy God's figure distort. At the same time, he heard Holy God call his name. When he heard the voice, his body immediately trembled. He was extremely familiar with the voice. It was the former principal's voice. Is Holy God really my former principal? Zhou Wen saw that Holy God was about to be killed by some force, and immediately used his new world power to envelop him. Holy God's distorted body immediately stopped distorting thanks to the new world power. It no longer looked distinct as it returned to its normal state. On the mini-cube, the scene that was rapidly dimming returned to normal. Interesting. When the Dharch saw this scene through the mini-cube, she grabbed it with her fingers. The mini-cube automatically disintegrated, turning into independent cubes. On each cube was a scene that was neatly arranged in front of her. Small cubes constantly changed on her palm. They disintegrated and reformed repeatedly like toy blocks. At that instant, the Dharch seemed to understand the secrets to the cube. She looked at the grid that belonged to Holy God, and under her gaze, the grid scene began to flash. Zhou Wen felt a terrifying force pressing down on his new world, as the surrounding space flickered. Looking at the changing space around him, Holy God said with a bitter smile, I never expected that all my years of painstaking research would end up with nothing. The Dharch is right. The moment I lost confidence in this world, I was abandoned by it. You are really... Zhou Wen looked at Holy God, momentarily at a loss on how to address him. If it were in the past, Zhou Wen could call him sir, but to be precise, Ouyang Ting was Ouyang Lan's father. Hence, Zhou Wen was Ouyang Lan's biological son, so Ouyang Ting was his grandfather. Holy God shook his head and stopped Zhou Wen from continuing. Listen to me. I know I'm a failure, and I shouldn't have lost confidence in my world, but there's really no other way. What I saw was just too terrifying. Remember, don't dream of going to that world. It's not a place we should go. What did you see? Zhou asked with a frown. That's not important. Remember, don't try to open the door to that world. Ignorance is sometimes a blessing. As Holy God spoke, he charged out of Zhou Wen's new world. Ouyang Ting was clearly prepared to die. He wanted to bury himself and everything he knew. However, no matter how Ouyang Ting's figure moved, he seemed to be fixed in place. He couldn't rush out of Zhou Wen's new world. Make things clear. I'd rather die in fear than live in ignorance, Zhou Wen said indifferently. Ouyang Ting looked at Zhou Wen in a daze, before realizing that Zhou Wen had grown to an unimaginable level. It looks like I was really wrong. Ouyang Ting sighed. The arch was competing with Zhou Wen through the mini-cube when a figure slowly walked over and landed on the Destiny platform. His white clothes were whiter than snow, and there was a sword with a ferocious aura hanging at his waist. It was none other than Wang Mingyuan. You're here. The arch looked at Wang Mingyuan and smiled. Isn't this what you want? Wang Mingyuan said indifferently. From the moment we entered Chess Mountain, everything was within your plans. You're smarter than him. Since you know that, why are you here? The Thearchus smile deepened. Why can't I come? Wang Mingyuan looked at the arch and said indifferently. The world is like a chess game. You are a chess player, and I was a chess piece in the past. Now, not only do I want to be a chess player, but I also want to be the person who sets the rules of the game. I want to redefine the rules of this world. Good idea. How do you redefine the rules? The arch asked Wang Mingyuan. Absolute rules don't require a chess player. All living beings will go about their matters under the rules. Everyone will follow their own destinies. There will be no disputes, no differences in status, nor will there be any discrimination or hatred. Absolute rules represent absolute equality. Wang Mingyuan's eyes gradually burned as he stared at the arch and slowly said, Killing a chess player is the first step to redefining the rules. At the end of the day, aren't you still going to be a chess player? The arch said disdainfully. You can also say that there can only be one truth in this world. As Wang Mingyuan spoke, the sword at his waist automatically unsheathed and transformed into a sharp beam of light that went straight for the arch. Chapter 1887 Goodbye. Chapter 1887 Goodbye. The moment the sword appeared, it was as if there was only this sword and the arch left in the world, with nowhere to hide and nothing to block. It was as if all other choices were gone, and this was the only path left in the world. Chaos of nothingness, I never expected you to have grasped the primordial laws. You're indeed qualified to be a chess player. The arch nodded slightly, seemingly impressed. Looking at the sword that seemed to occupy the world, the cube at the tip of the Thearchus finger flew out to meet the immortal sword. The C on the cube that belonged to Wang Mingyuan was facing the tip of the immortal sword. If this strike stabbed down, it was equivalent to Wang Mingyuan using his strength to wipe himself out. If he didn't stab down, the chaos of nothingness would immediately be cracked. Wang Mingyuan's aura would be torn through, and he would immediately be thrown into a disadvantage. Wang Mingyuan's eyes were firm, and he didn't have the slightest intention of retreating. The immortal sword didn't stop at all as it crashed into the cube, and the tip of the sword stabbed into the cube projection that belonged to him. The tip of the immortal sword inched into the cube's projection, causing it to flicker erratically as if it would turn black at any moment. The surrounding space also oscillated between dark and light, as if day and night were constantly alternating. I've said it before, I don't want to be a chess player. I want to redefine the rules. I want to destroy the person who defines the rules. Wang Mingyuan's expression was cold, as the power on the immortal sword intensified. Crack! The projection of the cube was penetrated by the immortal sword, and the entire cube disintegrated, scattering fragments everywhere. However, Wang Mingyuan wasn't wiped out. He still stood on the Destiny platform calmly. After the immortal sword penetrated the cube, it continued its thrust towards the arch with unstoppable might. However, when the immortal sword arrived in front of the arch, it appeared to be grabbed by an invisible hand. It stood fixed in place. No matter how the immortal sword trembled, it couldn't advance an inch. The arch looked at the immortal sword in front of her and sighed. To redefine the rules, you have to destroy the original rules first. Do you know what this means? Merely death. Wang Mingyuan's eyes were calm as though he had said it casually, but he had unimaginable determination. Nice way of putting it. From the looks of it, you really understand. The arch laughed. Unfortunately, only one person can ultimately go there. Otherwise, I would really want to see how far you could go. It's indeed a pity that I can't let you live to see that day. Wang Mingyuan nodded slightly, as though he agreed with the Thearchus' point of view. However, their pity was on completely different matters. The Thearchus' smile deepened. Apart from the Devil King from back then, you are the second fellow I find interesting. With that said, the Dharch suddenly said seriously, "To show my respect for you, I'll fight you seriously." As she spoke, the Dharch grabbed the immortal sword with her fingers. It changed directions, and the hilt landed in her hand. The Dharch held the immortal sword and slowly said, "The world only knows that the 4 immortal vanquishing swords can restrain immortals, but it doesn't know why it can restrain the immortals. That's because this sword is my sword. It's the sword of the immortal Dharch. You are wrong to want to use it to kill me." With that said, the Dharch wiped her finger across the sword. Blood that resembled an immortal glow and numinous liquid smeared the blade. The blood that seemed both liquid and gas seeped into the blade, causing the sword beam on the immortal sword to bloom as it trembled. Just as everyone was wondering what the Dharch was doing, they saw the Dharch throw the sword at Wang Mingyuan. The sword didn't have any strength. Wang Mingyuan casually grabbed it and held the immortal sword again. "The sword has a spirit and doesn't drink its master's blood. Now that it has drunk my blood, it's no longer my sword. It belongs to you now. Hold it tightly and let me see how far you have come." The Dharch finally became serious. Wang Mingyuan glanced at the immortal sword in his hand and suddenly threw it out of Destiny platform, allowing it to land in the bottomless abyss. "Now we can begin," Wang Mingyuan said calmly as he looked at the Dharch. "I'm really beginning to see you in a different light." The Thearka's lips curled up slightly as the immortal glow on her body constantly rose. The entire dimensional airspace was dyed many colors by the immortal glow. "You and I are the same kind of people, and we have the same goal. If there's a next life, I hope we can be friends." Wang Mingyuan's expression was solemn as his aura converged. His aura became more corporeal as his entire body became more and more crystal clear. It was so transparent that he was about to vanish. "See you in your next life." The Dharch clenched her fingers into a fist and threw a punch at Wang Mingyuan. With a punch, the world followed. The energy in the entire space seemed to be sucked dry by this punch, as the fist constantly magnified in everyone's eyes. The entire world seemed to be unable to contain the might of this punch, and was about to shatter. Wang Mingyuan followed with a punch as he took a step forward. His first punch didn't have any might, but as his fist faced the destructive punch, his strength became stronger and more domineering. As he walked against the light, he became more and more dazzling, even more dazzling than light. Moving up against the world, he devoured everything in a way even more majestic than the world. The fist broke through all restraints, but it contained the power of all things. It shattered layers of rules, and came close to the Thearka's fist. When the two fists collided, his fist's might was no longer inferior to the Thearka's. The two apocalyptic forces collided. Boom! The dimensional airspace exploded from the terrifying energy impact. Tremendous amounts of energy erupted and swept through the entire dimension. Mountains shattered as rivers instantly evaporated. Mysterious forbidden zones were swept apart. The ground cracked and temples collapsed. The entire dimension seemed to have been swept by a calamity. It was a mess. The various races of the dimension trembled in fear in the middle of the ruins. Only a few places that were protected by the power of apocalypse-grade powerhouses could avoid the calamity and retain a complete land for their race. Many of the contestants in the dimensional airspace were sent flying by this terrifying force. They tumbled for an unknown distance in the distorted and collapsing space, and some were even severely injured. Zhou and Holy God looked in the direction of the Destiny platform. With the dimensional airspace destroyed, it no longer had the ability to distort space. They immediately saw the Destiny platform in the distance, and the two figures standing on it. Wang Mingyuan and the Dharch stood facing each other on Destiny platform. The two of them looked calm as though they weren't injured. "Did you do your best?" Wang Mingyuan asked the Dharch. "I did," the Dharch said. Wang Mingyuan nodded slightly and said calmly, "Goodbye." With that said, Wang Mingyuan turned around and flew towards Zhou. Chapter 1888 The path to heaven isn't flat, only the body can be honed. Chapter 1888 The path to heaven isn't flat, only the body can be honed. "Wang Mingyuan, what are you trying to do?" Holy God stared at the approaching Wang Mingyuan and asked sternly. "Do you know why no one has bothered with you all these years? Jing Daoxian would rather face death than cooperate with you," Wang Mingyuan said indifferently as he looked at Holy God. "Why?" Holy God frowned. He never understood why Wang Mingyuan and Jing Daoxian weren't willing to cooperate with him. Cooperation was clearly beneficial to everyone, allowing them to take fewer detours and better understand those matters, but Jing Daoxian and Wang Mingyuan had rejected him. Wang Mingyuan had rejected him. It could be said that Wang Mingyuan wasn't willing to share the secrets he had obtained, but Jing Daoxian hadn't obtained it. All he had obtained was the lost Immortal Sutra that he couldn't cultivate. He had a way to heal Jing Daoxian's injured body, but even so, Jing Daoxian wasn't willing to cooperate with him. This puzzled Holy God. "You obtained the most, and were the first to obtain powers that didn't belong to you, but you failed to turn those powers into yours. Be it in the past or the present, you are a weakling. This has never changed. How can a powerhouse like Jing Daoxian cooperate with a weakling? With that said, Wang Mingyuan ignored Holy God and didn't even spare him a glance. He turned around and walked towards Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen looked at Wang Mingyuan with a complicated expression without saying a word. Holy God stood there in a daze, momentarily at a loss for a reaction. Wang Mingyuan came in front of Zhou Wen and handed him a box. Take it. You should be interested in what's inside. Zhou Wen didn't reject it as he reached out to take the box. This was because he knew that Wang Mingyuan was doomed. This was probably his last chance. That earth-shattering strike seemed to be evenly matched, but in fact, it had ended Wang Mingyuan. Or rather, he was already a dead person. He had only relied on his extremely strong will to not immediately dissipate into the world. However, that will was like an extinguishing candle that could turn to ashes at any moment. Seeing Zhou Wen take the box, Wang Mingyuan seemed to heave a sigh of relief. He looked at Zhou Wen and said with a smile, "Although I lost, I never regretted taking this path. Unfortunately, I ultimately can't change this filthy world." As he spoke, points of light gradually flew out from his body. "Child, I'm sorry. It's time for me to leave." Wang Mingyuan closed his eyes and spread out his arms to hug Zhou Wen. Holy God hurriedly warned, "Zhou Wen, be careful." Zhou Wen knew what Holy God meant. Wang Mingyuan had the ability to devour everything, but he didn't dodge and allowed Wang Mingyuan to hug him. Wang Mingyuan closed his eyes and hugged Zhou Wen with a smile. His lips moved slightly, as though he was saying something. More and more points of light flew out from his body. Moments later, Wang Mingyuan suddenly pushed Zhou Wen away and said with a smile, "My journey has come to an end. You have to continue on your journey. No matter how rugged it is, no matter how many difficulties stand in your way, it doesn't matter. Don't be lost. Don't be sad. There's no need to be afraid, nor do you have to be hesitant. Even if you fall one day, understand that it's an inevitable stage in life. Child, I have nothing left for you. All that's left is this skin. Let him pave a path for you. I hope he can let you go further." The path to heaven isn't flat, only the body can be honed. With that said, Wang Mingyuan's body emitted a blinding light as his body rapidly dissipated, turning into countless fluorescent lights that gathered towards the human sovereign stone saber at Zhou Wen's waist. "Teacher." Zhou Wen looked at Wang Mingyuan's rapidly disintegrating figure and extended his palm to grab something, but in the end, he gave up and muttered bitterly. Wang Mingyuan's figure was almost gone. He couldn't even make a sound. All one could see was his lips changing, as though he was saying something. Zhou Wen read his lips. He was talking about the box. In the next second, Wang Mingyuan's figure completely disintegrated and surged towards the human sovereign stone saber like a river of stars. Just as Zhou Wen was sighing, he suddenly felt his phone vibrate. The stream of light that was flying towards the human sovereign stone saber changed directions and flowed towards Zhou Wen's phone. Soon, they were all sucked into the phone. Zhou Wen's heart stirred. He knew that the dead man tree in the phone had definitely taken action and sucked in the dead Wang Mingyuan. Zhou Wen wanted to stop it, but he ultimately gave up. In a moment, the stream of light was injected into the phone, and the phone stopped vibrating. Zhou Wen didn't look at the situation on the phone. All he did was open the box. There were only 3 things in the box, 1 red and 1 blue companion egg. Beneath them was a book. The book didn't have a name. The cover was blank. When he flipped it open, he saw a drawing on the first page. It was a very simple drawing that looked like a child's graffiti. It was a little girl with pigtails. She held a man's hand in one hand and a woman's hand in the other. Behind her was a colorful hut. The drawing was very crude and without any technique. It wasn't very nice either, but the smiles on their faces were very bright. Zhou Wen sighed inwardly. The 3 people on the painting were probably Wang Mingyuan and his family. If he guessed correctly, this painting was probably drawn by the girl in the painting. The girl was likely Wang Mingyuan's daughter. After flipping to the next page, there were some words. The content was an essence energy art. At the same time, there were many annotations, but the essence energy art didn't have a name. Zhou Wen only took a short look and knew how terrifying this essence energy art was. However, just like the Lost Immortal Sutra, the requirements to cultivate this essence energy art were too high. Wang Mingyuan must have devoured Zhong Zia and Jiang Guan to complete the conditions needed to cultivate this essence energy art. Their talent partially met the conditions needed to cultivate this essence energy art. From the looks of it, the talent abilities of Transcendent Immortal and Void Sword Immortal were also a part of the conditions. The more he read, the more he found this essence energy art terrifying. Furthermore, this was clearly an essence energy art created by Wang Mingyuan. It wasn't an external essence energy art like the Lost Immortal Sutra. As he read, his expression turned odder. He realized that Wang Mingyuan hadn't been able to cultivate the essence energy art he had created to the final step. If he had really cultivated it to the final step, he might not have lost today. The reason Wang Mingyuan failed to reach the final step was that he lacked a talent. Absolute focus. Zhou Wen felt bitter because it was his talent. Wang Mingyuan had previously said that he had his reasons for taking in his disciples. Zhou Wen had previously imagined that Wang Mingyuan had taken him in as a disciple because he suspected that he was the child Zhou Lingfeng had carried out of Chess Mountain. From the looks of it, that wasn't the case. It was because he had absolute focus. However, Wang Mingyuan clearly had a chance to attack him previously, but he ultimately didn't devour Zhou Wen like he had devoured Jiang Yan and Zhong Zia. Zhou Wen didn't know why Wang Mingyuan hadn't attacked him. Was it because of their relationship as teacher and student, or was there some other reason? No one knew now. Everything had been reduced to dust with Wang Mingyuan's death. Chapter 1889 Settling Scores. Chapter 1889 Settling Scores. Zhou Wen looked at the remaining 2 companion eggs in the box, and seemed to think of something as he vanished. Holy God wanted to chase after Zhou Wen, but before he could do anything, he saw a person fly over.
Jing Daoxian, what are you doing here?
Holy God asked the young-looking Jing Daoxian.
I'm here to settle scores with you.
Jing Daoxian said with a chuckle.
What scores do we have to settle?
Holy God frowned slightly.
To settle the score for you secretly hurting me, of course.
Jing Daoxian couldn't help but sneer.
When did I hurt you?
Holy God said unhappily.
If you've never harmed me, why did you pretend to be missing and hide in the Holy Land?
Jing Daoxian continued disdainfully.
You believed that you had done so flawlessly. Unfortunately, you never expected that your good grandson would end up exposing your scheme while trying to save you. What do you mean?
Holy God didn't seem to understand what Jing Daoxian was saying.
Oh Yang Ting, you're really a good actor. At this stage, do you think there's any point in continuing?
Jing Daoxian said disdainfully.
Back then, the 4 of us entered Chess Mountain. Not long after, you went to the Holy Land. Later, all those things cropped up in the Holy Land. A stupid person would be able to figure it out. 6 holy races corresponding to the 6 races bloodline? You are the same as that trash from the Xia family. You just want to snatch the bloodline of others.
It's just that the old man from the Xia family was too stupid, but what you did was much more brilliant. You did a beautiful job of deceiving your superiors. Not only did you use the power of the 6 races of the dimension for your use, but you also obtained the 6 strongest human talent bloodlines. I have to admit that I admire you. Your move was brilliant. If it wasn't for your grandson insisting on saving you and forcing you to reveal a flaw, no one would have expected you to be Holy God.
Jing Daoxian's choice of words were nice, but his tone and expression were filled with contempt. The people who heard these words were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe the truth behind the so-called 6 bloodlines.
Jing Daoxian, what nonsense are you spouting? What do you want?
Holy God's voice turned cold. Jing Daoxian curled his lips and said,
What you did is none of my business. I can't be bothered with you. However, you shouldn't have schemed against me. There should be information regarding the Lost Immortal Sutra in the things you obtained from the ship, right? You don't have to deny it. There had to be something. All those things you did were all preparations for cultivating the Lost Immortal Sutra. Unfortunately, the information you obtained must be incomplete, so you didn't attack me and chose me to be your lab rat.
Back when you came to me to cooperate and said that you could help me alleviate my injuries and extend my life, I knew that something was amiss.
Jing Daoxian chuckled coldly.
If I hadn't figured everything out back then and played along, dragging Xia down to replace me as the new lab rat, I'm afraid you would have long snatched the Lost Immortal Sutra I had and killed me, right?
You think you did it flawlessly, but in fact, you're just an idiot.
Jing Daoxian sneered and said,
Wang Mingyuan is right. From beginning to end, you're just a pitiful weakling. It's useless no matter how much you obtain. Trash will always be trash. Are you done?
Holy God's tone was cold as killing intent appeared in his eyes.
Do you want to kill me? There's no rush. It won't be too late to attack after I finish telling you the last thing you don't know.
Jing Daoxian said with a smile. What is it? Holy God stared at Jing Daoxian and asked.
Do you know why I gave the Lost Immortal Sutra to Zhou Wen?
Jing Daoxian said with a faint smile.
Because he's the child Zhou Lingfeng carried out. You want to find the correct cultivation method of the Lost Immortal Sutra on him.
Holy God said coldly.
Haha, from the moment I stood in front of him, I knew that he wasn't that child. Just like how Wang Mingyuan knew that he wasn't that child, I'm afraid only you thought otherwise.
Jing Daoxian's eyes were filled with contempt.
Zhou Wen was never that child. He was the child of Zhou Lingfeng and your daughter. Since you wanted me to be your lab rat, I chose to have your grandson be my lab rat. Back then, after you knew that Zhou Wen had cultivated the Lost Immortal Sutra, were you still very happy that another person had become your lab rat?
Towards the end, Jing Daoxian laughed maniacally.
Oh Yang Ting, oh Yang Ting, I can only say that your luck isn't bad. Zhou Wen actually mastered the Lost Immortal Sutra. It's a pity you didn't get to see your grandson die because of your machinations.
The killing intent and anger in Holy God's eyes could no longer be concealed. He raised his palm slightly and gradually condensed a black mini-cube in his hand. He stared at Jing Daoxian and said,
"Are you done? If there's nothing else to say, you can be on your way."
As he spoke, Holy God pointed at the scene that belonged to Jing Daoxian.
"What you learned from the ship is useless against Immortal Arch and Wang Mingyuan. Do you think it will be useful against me? I'll let you see how strong the Lost Immortal Sutra that you failed to obtain is."
Jing Daoxian wasn't afraid at all. There was even a hint of mockery on his lips. On the cube, the scene that belonged to Jing Daoxian suddenly vanished. Even his name on the rankings vanished. However, before Holy God's finger could touch the scene that belonged to him, it vanished. What was even more shocking was that through Holy God's scene, people could still see Jing Daoxian standing there unharmed. Holy God looked at the mini-cube without Jing Daoxian's image, his eyes revealing surprise.
This world isn't as simple as you think. Do you think you can control this world just because you grasp a few rules you learned from others? You're still far from it.
Jing Daoxian grinned like a devil.
Now, it's time to settle our scores.
In the next second, Jing Daoxian appeared in front of Holy God like a ghost and grabbed his face. Holy God's figure drew a strange trajectory, as though space had folded over him. The layers of spatial trajectories made Jing Daoxian lose himself in them. Crack! Jing Daoxian's hand strangely passed through the folded space and grabbed Holy God's face, shattering the mask there. The mask and the remaining fragments on Holy God's face fell bit by bit, revealing his true appearance. It was a flawless face. There was nothing imperfect about it. All the lines and contours seemed to have been carefully calculated. They had the most perfect proportions and curves. To be so perfect made a person inhuman. Looking at that face, Jing Daoxian was somewhat alarmed.
You aren't Yang Ting. Who are you?
Chapter 1890 Nameless. Chapter 1890 Nameless.
You can call me Yang Ting or Nameless.
Holy God said indifferently as he looked at Jing Daoxian. Jing Daoxian was slightly taken aback as he sized up Holy God. Moments later, he cackled strangely.
Yang Ting, Yang Ting, you're really pathetic. You schemed your entire life, but in the end, you ended up benefiting others. Nameless, you are the nameless god created by the 6 races, right?
You can't say he benefited others. Yang Ting is nameless. Nameless is Yang Ting. We are a whole to begin with.
Holy God paused before continuing.
You're right. In terms of talent, I'm inferior to you. In terms of capability, I'm inferior to Wang Mingyuan. My schemes directed at all of you failed. I didn't obtain Wang Mingyuan's information or your lost Immortal Sutra.
However, that's no longer important. After obtaining the bloodlines of the 6 races, I obtained the chance to fuse with Nameless God. Now, my bloodline is already the most perfect bloodline in this world. It's still too early to declare the outcome of our battle.
Holy God said indifferently. Jing Daoxian said disdainfully.
Most perfect bloodline? If I'm not wrong, you were able to fuse with the Nameless God created by the combined forces of the 6-dimensional races, all thanks to that grandson of yours.
Holy God didn't deny it as he nodded and said,
The backlash of Nameless Gods was indeed an opportunity for me to fuse with it. However, is that important? No matter what the process was, I did it. That's true. This is a world that only cares about the outcome. Then let me see if your most perfect bloodline is perfect.
Jing Daoxian's eyes suffused a glow as he smiled like a ferocious ghost. He instantly appeared in front of Holy God. Holy God's whereabouts became unknown, but space flowed around him. At the same time, his fist emitted a sun-like glow. Boom! Jing Daoxian clawed through space, including the sun's light. The chaotic light turned the entire cube screen into a world of flowing light. The people watching the battle through the cube could only see all sorts of light blasts flashing. They couldn't discern their battle at all. The other participants' scenes also became very unstable due to the battle. From time to time, all sorts of streams of light flashed on the screen. Only the Thearka scene wasn't affected. Only then did people realize that the scene representing Human Sovereign had turned black. Even the name of Ninth Heaven's Human Sovereign had vanished. Zhou Wen, who was also a cultivator of the Lost Immortal Sutra, could also ignore the rules of the Destiny platform and the cube. At that moment, Zhou Wen landed in an uninhabited area in the dimension. He held the 2 companion eggs Wang Mingyuan had left behind. They were the only things left behind by Wang Mingyuan apart from the book. Before Wang Mingyuan died, He had used his supreme willpower to stall for time to deliver the items to him. It was obvious how much Wang Mingyuan valued these things. It wasn't surprising that it was so cherished. The book was Wang Mingyuan's way of reminiscing about his family, as well as the essence energy art he took a lifetime to create. Why did he cherish these two companion eggs so much? If they were very rare and powerful companion eggs, why didn't Wang Mingyuan use them himself? If they weren't precious companion eggs, why would he treasure them so much? This was clearly contradictory. Zhou Wen thought of a possibility, so he was very eager to verify his guess. He directly injected essence energy and hatched the two companion eggs. These two companion eggs didn't require much essence energy. They were likely mythical companion eggs. After the two companion eggs were hatched, they transformed into a red and blue beam that fused into Zhou Wen's body. On his left and right arms, two strange tattoos, one red, one blue, formed. The red mark on the left arm was a red dot, and the mark on the right arm was a blue dot. They looked very simple. Zhou Wen took out his phone and hurriedly looked at the information on the two companion beasts. Yin Reincarnation Flower, Mythical, Evolvable. Life Providence, Yin Yang Reincarnation Flower. Life Soul, Twin Yin Soul. Wheel of Destiny, Great Samsara Wheel. Strength, 81. Speed, 81. Constitution, 81. Essence Energy, 81. Talent Skill, Extreme Yin Burst Yang. Companion Form, Soul. Yang Reincarnation Flower, Mythical, Evolvable. Life Providence, Yin Yang Reincarnation Flower. Life Soul, Twin Sun Soul. Wheel of Destiny, Great Samsara Wheel. Strength, 81. Speed, 81. Constitution, 81. Essence Energy, 81. Talent Skill, Extreme Yang Burst Yin. Companion Form, Soul. Zhou Wen summoned the Yin and Yang Reincarnation Flowers, and saw the red and blue plants appear in front of him. The Yin Reincarnation Flower had two blue leaves with a flower but growing at the tip. It was only slightly bigger than his palm. Inside the crystalline blue roots and leaves, one could vaguely see red veins that resembled blood vessels. The Yang Reincarnation Flower was red. It looked almost identical to the Yin Reincarnation Flower. At the tip was a red flower bud with blue veins inside. Two flowers floated in the air like two dancing sprites. Zhou Wen watched for a while before frowning slightly. He reached out and put away the two flowers. He originally imagined that these two companion eggs were related to Zhong Zia and Jiang Yin. Perhaps Wang Mingyuan had the means similar to the dead man tree that could turn the dead Jiang Yin and Zhong Zia into companion eggs. However, these two companion beasts were only two flowers, and not Zhong Zia and Jiang Yin. Zhou Wen didn't sense Jiang Yin and Zhong Zia's auras from the two flowers. Even if they were really related to the two of them, there was probably only little information left behind in the two companion beasts. He looked at the dead man tree on his phone again. A crystalline fruit that resembled ice had grown on the tree. He didn't know when it would ripen. Even if it really matured, the companion beast it transformed into was only similar to Wang Mingyuan, not Wang Mingyuan. The past ultimately cannot be returned. Zhou Wen sighed. Zhou Wen put away his phone and was about to head to Destiny platform when he saw a figure walking towards him.
How should I address you?
Zhou Wen looked at the person and said with a smile,
I'm Li Xian's eldest brother, and your elder brother's childhood friend. Calling me brother wouldn't be a problem, right?
The person said with a smile.
It's not a problem indeed.
Zhou Wen nodded and wiped away his smile as he solemnly addressed him as brother. Laughingly felt a little uncomfortable seeing Zhou Wen so formal. He waved his hand and said,
You are the same as your brother. You're serious over everything. It's not fun at all. Brother Li, there's something I need your help with.
Zhou Wen said solemnly.
You want to ask about your grandfather, Ouyang Ting, right?
Laughingly knew what Zhou Wen wanted to ask. He sighed and said,
Back when I swam across Lake Frustration, I did see your grandfather, Ouyang Ting. Is he holy god?
Zhou Wen asked.
I can only tell you that Ouyang Ting was already dead when he swam across Lake Frustration.
Laughingly said bitterly. Chapter 1891 Boundless. Chapter 1891 Boundless.
What do you mean?
Zhou Wen didn't understand laughingly. Laughingly explained.
Ouyang Ting swam across Lake Frustration, and I swam across Lake Frustration as well. That lake is very strange. As long as one has worries, they won't be able to swim across the lake and will definitely sink. However, how can humans not have worries? They won't be humans. As far as I know, only 2 humans have swam across Lake Frustration alive. For that to happen, there are only 2 possibilities.
Laughingly paused for a moment before continuing.
One way to swim across Lake Frustration alive is to abandon your worries. The other way is to resolve them. You chose the second method?
Zhou Wen muttered. Laughingly nodded. It's impossible for a person to not have any worries, but not all worries can be resolved. The so-called solution is actually to have a clear mind and no worries in one's heart. In order to have a clear mind, one mustn't hesitate to sacrifice themselves. A person can die, but not their beliefs. If they are capable of giving up their lives, they naturally won't be affected by their worries. Zhou had understood what laughingly meant, but how many people in the world could really do something as simple as clearing their minds? What's the price to pay for abandoning your worries? Zhou stared at laughingly and asked. He had already guessed that the former principal might have chosen this path. Abandoning one's frustrations in the lake of frustration isn't that easy. One has to abandon everything that produces frustrations. However, such an abandonment is equivalent to giving up on one's past. Laughingly said with a bitter smile. I originally thought that Ouyang Ting and I had taken the same path. Only after I met him did I realize that he took another path. Zhou finally understood why laughingly said that Ouyang Ting had died when he swam across the lake of frustration. Abandoning the past was no different from death. So, Ouyang Ting is holy god now, right? Zhou sighed. Yes, I didn't know back then either. It was only thanks to your brother. After he met Ouyang Ting, he could tell that Ouyang Ting was no longer the Ouyang Ting of the past. Laughingly nodded. Zhou didn't say anything else. Even if Ouyang Ting had abandoned his past, in terms of bloodline, he was still Ouyang Lan's father and grandfather. What else could he say? You didn't come to me to tell me this, right? Zhou said to laughingly. Of course not. I came to you to get you to help me remove my name from the rankings. You should be able to do it, right? Laughingly said. Didn't you ascend Destiny platform yourself? Why do you want to be removed? Zhou asked in puzzlement. Laughingly spread out his hands and said. I just wanted my name on Destiny platform and show off. Who knew that this would happen in the end? If I had known that there would be such a Destiny battle, I wouldn't have come up here to court death. Zhou looked at laughingly in a daze. After a while, he couldn't help but laugh. I thought you ascended Destiny platform to fight for humanity's future. Boolsh asterisk T. How can a person like me have such noble thoughts? Laughingly curled his lips and continued. Isn't living well nice? That's right. It's easy to remove your name, but it's hard to say if that person will let you off. Zhou said after some thought. Erasing the Destiny platform's ranking wasn't difficult for Zhou, who had the Lost Immortal Sutra. However, erasing the ranking didn't mean that they were uninvolved with the Destiny battle. Only one person could survive the Destiny battle. As long as the people participating in the Destiny battle were still alive, no one could truly be conferred the title of Monarch. If the Darch was really determined to be conferred the title of Monarch again, she had to kill all the participants, regardless of whether they were on the rankings. I know. Laughingly nodded slightly. Before that, I can at least do something I want to do. Zhou didn't say anything else as he waved his hand and slashed at laughingly. Zhou didn't release any might, but laughingly's cube screen went black. The name on the rankings vanished. Brother, thank you. Laughingly turned around and left without any hesitation. Seeing laughingly leave, Zhou looked into the distance. His gaze passed through layers of space and reflected two figures, Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting. The two of them were covered in wounds, but they continued fighting crazily. Jing Daoxian's clothes had completely torn apart, revealing his firm muscles. His entire body emitted a strange aura. Every strike seemed to point straight to the source. No matter how the world changed, it didn't seem to affect him at all. He was a true destroyer. He ignored all rules and tore apart all rules. Ouyang Ting was completely different. He used the rules of the world to the extreme. The power of the entire world seemed to be aiding him. One defied the heavens, while the other followed the will of the heavens. Victory was momentarily undetermined, as they were constantly injured in their clashes. After watching for a moment, Zhou stopped paying attention to their battle. They were all very strong, almost no weaker than Wang Mingyuan. However, so what if they were as strong as Wang Mingyuan? Wang Mingyuan had already lost. They still had no chance of beating the Darch. Zhou looked in the direction of Destiny platform and saw the Darch staring at him. With a thought, Zhou was about to head to Destiny platform. This was a battle he couldn't avoid. Even if he hit at the end of the universe, the Darch probably wouldn't let him off. If you want to go to Destiny platform, you have to defeat me first. A figure blocked Zhou's path. It was Drought Demon Fairy. There doesn't seem to be any grudge between us, right? Zhou frowned at Drought Demon Fairy. You dug up my grave. If this isn't a grudge, what is? Drought Demon Fairy said indifferently. The Zhang family was the one who dug you. I was just a bystander. At most, I was just watching over them. Why aren't you looking for the person in question? Why me? Zhou was at a loss whether to laugh or cry.
People who can't even ascend the staircase aren't qualified, Drow Demon Fairy said with a smile. That's a little unreasonable, Jowen said. When have I ever been reasonable? As Drow Demon Fairy spoke, the surrounding space suddenly rose with terrifyingly high temperatures. The high temperature completely melted everything, making one see a hellish scene. Jowen ignored the terrifying high temperature and summoned Truth Listener with a thought. Truth Listener transformed into the handsome man in a golden kasaya and stood in front of Jowen. Its golden eyes stared at Drow Demon Fairy. At that moment, her entire body was burning, with flames that surged into the sky. The omnipresent flames filled the entire world, wanting to incinerate everything. Truth Listener raised its hands in front of it, as though it was ripping its clothes. It pulled sideways with all its might. The flaming world was like a curtain that Truth Listener tore apart with its bare hands. The flames swept to the sides like curtains. Truth Listener, Apocalypse Grade, Evolvable. Life Providence, Heaven Senses Life Soul, Evil Nullification Wheel of Destiny, Nirvana of Ultimate Hell. Terror Form, Holy Evil, S Grade, Calamity Zone, Evil Breaker, Heaven Level. New World, Boundless. Strength, 9,999. Speed, 9,999. Constitution, 9999. Essence Energy, 9999. Talent Skill, Truth Listener, Indestructible. Vajra Body, Evil Warding, Nigh Extremes Companion Form, Earring. Chapter 1892 I'm Just Me. Chapter 1892 I'm Just Me. Drow Demon Fairy's body emitted surging red flames, as her fist capable of melting virtually anything met Truth Listener. Truth Listener's fist destroyed all strength it encountered the instant the two fists collided. The flames over Drow Demon Fairy seemed to be extinguished by water. Bang! Drow Demon Fairy's body flew out like a meteor and slammed into the ground like an atomic bomb exploding. A huge shockwave rose from the ground like a wave. Drow Demon Fairy's strength was clearly far inferior to Truth Listener's. They were both at the Apocalypse Grade, but there was a stark difference in strength. Truth Listener's stats were 9,999, the peak of the Apocalypse Grade. Previously, when Truth Listener had just evolved, it had been slapped to the wall by the Devil King like a fly. This gave Jowen the impression that Truth Listener wasn't very strong, but the battle with Drow Demon Fairy made him understand that it wasn't that Truth Listener wasn't strong enough, but that the Devil King was too strong. Drow Demon Fairy stood up from the crater. The flesh on the back of her hand had split open, but there wasn't a drop of blood. Only flames rose from the wound. She stared intently at Truth Listener. She never expected Jowen's companion beast to be so strong. As she straightened her back, Drow Demon Fairy's body burned with red flames again. However, the red flames didn't envelop the surrounding area, but her body. The illusory flames turned into a magma, like red liquid before turning into a red crystal. Her entire body resembled a red crystal statue thanks to the red flames' envelopment. Everyone paid attention to the battle through the Drow Demon Fairy's screen. It wasn't that they didn't want to watch other battles, but that the battles elsewhere were not available. Jing Daoxian and Nameless battle resulted in them only seeing all sorts of colorful light. Even the other screens were affected. Only this side was relatively unaffected, allowing them to see the battle clearly. The ground beneath Drow Demon Fairy's feet instantly turned into a sea of magma. It spread out from her with no end in sight. This wasn't caused by Drow Demon Fairy's new world power. It was simply the remnant heat emitted by the flaming crystal when it touched the ground. What terrifying heat energy! As expected of Drow Demon Fairy. The description of her flames ravaging the lands is an understatement, Zhang Chuanxiu praised. The Zhang family had been guarding against the Drow Demon Fairy for years, so they more or less had some indescribable feelings for her. And Sheng looked at Drow Demon Fairy and the magma sea beneath her feet and said thoughtfully, "What a pity! If such a high temperature is used to generate electricity, we can resolve the global power problem. Just 1,000th of the heat energy converted into electricity will be enough to last the world for countless years." And Tianzhua smiled and said, "You're the only person who can think of using Drow Demon Fairy to generate electricity. Her powers aren't as simple as high temperatures." "What is it then?" And Sheng asked in puzzlement. "The essence of heat is actually a macroscopic manifestation of the movement of microscopic particles. Drow Demon Fairy's strength is not so much fire, but absolute control over kinetic energy." And Tianzhua said, "What's the difference? No matter what the name is, isn't it just high temperatures?" And Sheng still didn't understand. Continue watching, and you will understand. And Tianzhua didn't explain further. This was because he no longer had the time to explain. Truth Listener had already appeared above Drow Demon Fairy's head like a ghost. It threw a punch at Drow Demon Fairy's head.
A sneer appeared on Drought Demon Fairy's lips as she brandished her fist at Truth Listener. Again, at the instant she threw out her fist, the flames were like huge lotus flower petals that retracted layer by layer, enveloping Truth Listener's body. The outermost petal was as red as fire. The first petal became shallower, but it also became more corporeal. The layers of petals gradually turned transparent and colorless, but they also turned from illusory flames to crystals. They sealed Truth Listener in the middle of the lotus flower, as though it was frozen in ice. Drought Demon Fairy can control the movement of particles, meaning she can accelerate, decelerate, or even stop particles. When there's zero movement, that's probably absolute zero. And Tianzua said. Only then did Ensheng understand how terrifying Drought Demon Fairy was. If all particles were to stop moving, wouldn't that mean that life would cease? Wouldn't that mean death? What a pity. Young Master Wind's companion beast is such a powerful companion beast. To think it will be killed by Drought Demon Fairy. Just like that. Ensheng said with a sigh. It won't die so easily. And Tianzua's words left Ensheng slightly taken aback. Before he could ask further, the huge lotus flower on the cube screen suddenly shattered. Truth Listener shattered the seal and punched Drought Demon Fairy's fist, smashing her down like a nail. Drought Demon Fairy's body was smashed into the magma sea before Truth Listener rushed in without any hesitation. Everyone saw terrifying magma pillars rise up from the magma sea like volcanic eruptions. Instantly, the magma spewed out. Finally, all the magma surged into the sky like seawater. The spot where the magma sea was originally located turned into a huge, bottomless pit. The sky turned into a magma sea as though the world had flipped on its head. In the huge crater, Truth Listener floated in the air, its blonde hair dancing in the wind. As for Drought Demon Fairy, she lay twisted on the ground. At such a strange angle, all her bones had probably been shattered. Drought Demon Fairy was defeated just like that. That companion beast is too terrifying. Such strength is truly invincible. Strength is above all. In front of absolute strength, everything is trash. Companion beasts can actually be this strong? Looking at human sovereign's companion beasts, and then looking at mine, apart from being gluttonous, this glutton is really inferior to his in every aspect. I have the urge to strangle it to death. Zhou glanced at Drought Demon Fairy on the ground, and with a thought, he unsummoned Truth Listener and turned to leave. Wait. Drought Demon Fairy wasn't dead yet. She struggled to stand up, but her bones that had been shattered by Truth Listener couldn't automatically fuse. She couldn't stand up despite struggling a few times. Do you still want to continue? Zhou asked Drought Demon Fairy. You want to fight that immortal arch? Drought Demon Fairy asked. I have no choice but to fight, Zhou said, indifferently. In that case, please kill me. Drought Demon Fairy's words left Zhou slightly taken aback. Why? Zhou had seen people plead for their lives, but he had never seen someone wish for death like Drought Demon Fairy. Your human sovereign stone saber doesn't have a soul. I'm its soul, Drought Demon Fairy said slowly. You are the soul of the human sovereign stone saber? Zhou looked at Drought Demon Fairy in surprise. Fire is the source of life for humans. The human sovereign stone saber is the fire stone saber, and I'm the soul of the fire stone saber. I'm the first flame of humanity that Swirenshi ignited. Drought Demon Fairy closed her eyes and said, This body is already useless. Kill me, and sacrifice my soul to the saber. That will make it the true human sovereign stone saber. Only then can you be considered a true human sovereign. Only then will you be qualified to represent humanity to vie for the position of the Dimensional King. I see. However, I'm afraid you are mistaken. There has always been only one human sovereign, and I'm only me, not the human sovereign. Zhou turned around and walked towards Destiny platform, ignoring Drought Demon Fairy. You're finally here. The Dwarf smiled when she saw Zhou walk up the Destiny platform. Chapter 1893 Stake Battle. Chapter 1893 Stake Battle. It was only a matter of time. Zhou stood on Destiny platform and sized up the Dwarf. There has to be an understanding between us. I lost the last bet, so I want to win it back this time. Typically, those who want to right their losses tend to lose more. The Dwarf smiled. I want to give it a try, Zhou said calmly. Then I'll give you another chance. How about we make another bet? The Dwarf said with a smile. How? Zhou knew that their battle had already begun. At their realm, their words and actions were enough to destroy their opponent, much less a bet. Let's bet on who will win between the two. The Dwarf raised her palm, and a mini cube condensed in her palm. The cube disintegrated, and one of the squares flew out.
It zoomed in, and quickly reached the size of a normal cube screen, like a wall. On the screen was the battle between Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting. The Darch wanted to bet on their outcome with Zhou Wen.
What's the bet?
He asked with a frown.
The bet is naturally the throne determined by fate,
the Darch said indifferently.
This time, I'll give you a chance to choose. You can choose first. I choose Ouyang Ting,
Zhou Wen said without any hesitation. In fact, he had no other choice. If the loser of this battle might not necessarily die before they interfered in this battle, then their deaths were a certainty with their involvement. Even if Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting wanted to give up the battle, there was no chance. They had to fight to the death. Therefore, Zhou Wen could only choose Ouyang Ting. Otherwise, Ouyang Ting would be dead even if he won. How was Zhou Wen to face Sis Lan in the future if that were the case? If Zhou Wen really had to choose based on the chances of victory, he would have chosen Jing Daoxian. However, it didn't matter. This was no longer a battle between Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting, but a battle between Zhou Wen and the Darch. It didn't matter who was chosen.
From the looks of it, you didn't have much of a choice when given one,
the Darch said with a smile.
It doesn't matter if there's a choice as long as I end in victory,
Zhou Wen said with a smile.
Then I'm really looking forward to it.
The Darch glanced at the two combatants and said indifferently,
Since you are the person I chose, you are the chosen one. The heavens will naturally help you.
When the Darch said that, Ouyang Ting was abandoned by the very power that he gained from following the will of the heavens and gaining its help. The power of the world directed itself to Jing Daoxian. Jing Daoxian cultivated a heaven-defying technique, but with the help of the world's power, the originally balanced situation was immediately overturned. The world pressed down when Jing Daoxian threw a punch. Ouyang Ting, who was like a bird in a cage facing a calamity, couldn't escape the might of Jing Daoxian's punch. He was about to be crushed to death. The ninth heaven's human sovereign appeared above Zhou Wen. He pointed at the world and split the rules of the great Tao into two. The power of the world immediately lost its restrictions and dissipated. It no longer favored Jing Daoxian, nor was it usable by Ouyang Ting. Although the ninth heaven's human sovereign had split the great Tao rules into two with the Tao Sutras method, cracking the Thearka's wish powers, it made it difficult for Ouyang Ting to borrow the power of the world. It was only a matter of time before he was defeated. With a thought from Zhou Wen, the ninth heaven's human sovereign emitted a glorious light. The light passed through layers of space and landed on Ouyang Ting, immediately increasing his combat strength. Furthermore, his body obtained an almost infinite self-healing ability, immediately turning the tides. The Darch praised,
Offering yourself to redeem others is greatness. Unfortunately, human nature is evil. So-called good is just self-satisfaction. It won't end well.
With the Thearka's words, the power of human sovereign that had augmented Ouyang Ting greatly became a burden for him. It made him feel like he was carrying a mountain. The self-healing power became a resistance to his recovery. However, in an instant, the power of human sovereign that had augmented Ouyang Ting's body switched to Jing Daoxian. All the pressure turned into pressure on Jing Daoxian.
What a great sky-stealing sun-swapping! It's indeed extremely magical,
the Darch smiled and said.
However, harming others ultimately brings harm to oneself. It's karma. One has to suffer the consequences of their evil
deeds.
The situation changed again because of the Thearka's words. The ninth heaven's human sovereign strength clearly didn't land on Ouyang Ting, but the same human sovereign strength appeared on Ouyang Ting's body. It became a burden for him and pulled the duo back to the same starting line. Everyone was already dumbfounded. Powerhouses like Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting were already godlike existences in their eyes. They could destroy a planet with a single move. However, these two terrifying powerhouses seemed to be ants that were being toyed with in front of Zhou Wen and the Darch. Their survival was completely out of their control. Instead, it was decided by the actions of third parties. Everyone felt their scalps tingle as they felt endless sorrow. If a powerhouse like Jing Daoxian suffered such a fate, they were probably even worse than ants.
This battle is almost giving me depression,
Xiao Luchuan sighed.
Now, I understand Wang Mingyuan a little. He didn't want to be a chess piece and wanted to be a chess player, but he failed.
Zhang Chuanqiu smiled bitterly.
Cut it out. At the very least, Wang Mingyuan was a chess piece. We aren't even chess pieces. We are just the materials used to create chess pieces.
Xiao Luchuan lost interest in speaking and continued watching the battle. Although Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting were also burdened by the power of human sovereign, Ouyang Ting was still at a disadvantage without the augmentation of the world's power. This was why Zhou Wen had previously believed that Jing Daoxian had a higher chance of winning. Ouyang Ting had borrowed power from too many external sources, while Jing Daoxian himself was already a transcendent existence. The Darch, well played. Zhou Wen praised. Ninth Heaven's human sovereign emitted a brilliant light again. When the light shone down, it transformed into a bubble-like shadow that enveloped the area where Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting were fighting. In an instant, Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting's essence energy were drained as the power of human sovereign on their backs vanished. The two terrifying powerhouses, who originally had supreme strength, suddenly lost all their strength and turned into two mortals. However, they continued their brawl. They had been fighting like immortals just moments ago, but now they were no different from the hooligans on the streets. They punched and kicked each other, and even grappled with one another. Everyone was already numb from the fight. Such invincible powerhouses were just two worthless lives in the eyes of Zhou Wen and the Darch. Chapter 1894. Let me give you a boost. Chapter 1894. Let me give you a boost. Encourage. Instead of calling the battle between Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting a battle, it was more like a battle between Zhou Wen and the Darch. Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting were just tools. It was no different from the mahjong pieces or the dice on the table. It looked like the two of them were exchanging blows, but Zhou Wen knew very well that he was on the losing end. From beginning to end, the Darch had only taken advantage of the situation and hadn't really used her strength. Zhou Wen had already pushed the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign's abilities to their limits. Even if he continued, he would probably lose in the end. As expected of the Darch. She is still so unfathomable. Wang Mingyuan's desperate strike failed to pry into her true limits. Zhou Wen sighed inwardly. It's quite interesting this way, the Darch said with a smile as she looked at Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting fighting in the bubble. She didn't give them any further impetus. Zhou Wen knew very well that even if the Darch didn't do anything, Jing Daoxian would definitely win if this continued. Ouyang Ting wasn't good at combat. He was better at using all sorts of rules. As for Jing Daoxian, he was experienced in combat. Despite using the same abilities, his combat strength was far above Ouyang Ting's. However, under the first order of chaos, Zhou Wen could only control essence energy. It was impossible for him to have one person possess essence energy while the other didn't. Thankfully, the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign's ability wasn't just that. With a thought, the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign's eyes suffused a demonic sanguine glow. As the sanguine light in the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign's eyes bloomed, Ouyang Ting's body underwent a mutation. Scales appeared on his body, as though he was about to become a demon beast. His strength and speed rapidly increased as his body strengthened. He once again gained the upper hand in the battle with Jing Daoxian. The Darch seemed somewhat disappointed when she saw Zhou Wen use such a method. I've given you so much time, but you've only grown to this stage? From the looks of it, you still lack the courage. Then let me give you a boost. The Darch looked at Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting in battle and said, What an ugly performance. What's the difference between them and dogs fighting? With the Thearcha's voice fading, Jing Daoxian and Ouyang Ting really turned into two ferocious dogs that bit at one another. The Thearcha's voice didn't stop there as she continued. Humans are ugly. It's best if all of you don't remain as humans. Being beasts suit all of you better. Zhou Wen's expression fell as he focused his mind on sensing Earth. Immediately, he turned nasty. All humans had turned into an assortment of animals because of the Thearcha's words. Be it cows, sheep, dogs, donkeys, pigs, or horses, all these animals were in a panic. Not a single human could be seen. It looks like that's still insufficient courage, the Darch said indifferently. Come! A black husky appeared out of thin air in front of the Darch. No matter how it struggled in the air, it couldn't escape the invisible restraints. What are you doing? Zhou Wen's expression was extremely nasty, as his body emitted divine light as he stared intently at the Darch. He sensed Li Xian's aura from the husky, giving you a boost in courage. The Darch looked at the Li Xian husky and said indifferently, A warrior will die for his bosom friend. You can be considered to have died a worthy death. Enraged, Zhou Wen instantly appeared in front of the Darch. The unique New World power enveloped the Li Xian husky, putting himself between him and the Darch as he threw a punch at her. The Thearcha's figure turned incorporeal. Zhou Wen's fist seemed to travel infinite distance without reaching her. This was the power of transcendent immortal. However, when used by the Darch, it was many times stronger than his. It was as though there was an infinite space between the two of them. Zhou Wen's eyes were firm as steel as his fist pressed forward. He broke through the infinite space and appeared in front of the Darch. That's more like it. Unfortunately, you're still too weak. The Darch pressed one finger in front of Zhou Wen's fist, preventing him from advancing any further. From the looks of it, the courage I gave you isn't enough. You still don't have the determination to abandon everything.
You still have scruples. The Arch looked at Zhou Wen calmly and continued. Then let me help you remove them. Zhou Wen sensed that things were going south. He swept his senses towards Earth and saw the human bodies that had transformed into animals explode, turning into bloody mists. It was the same all-over Guide Ancient City and Luoyang City. Suddenly, a girl's figure appeared above Earth. The golden holy light on her body illuminated the entire Earth like the sun. Wherever the golden light went, the humans who had transformed into animals stopped self-destructing. Sweetie. Zhou Wen sensed the girl's aura and was overjoyed. Zhou Wen, I can't last long. Quickly defeat her. Sweetie's voice sounded in Zhou Wen's mind. Zhou Wen stared at the Arch's ninth heaven's human sovereign fused into Zhou Wen's body like a phantom. The power of the ninth heaven's human sovereign and unique overlapped as Zhou Wen's strength rose like a volcanic eruption. You deserve death. Zhou Wen's fist carried unparalleled strength as it pressed down on the Thearch's fingers inch by inch. Now that's more like it. The Thearch's fingers also emitted a divine light that resisted Zhou Wen's terrifying strength. His fist couldn't advance any further. Not only was he unable to advance an inch, but he was also pressed back by the finger. The Arch still managed to constantly suppress Zhou Wen with just a finger. His straight arm gradually bent. The volcanic flames on Zhou Wen's body were also suppressed, pressing back into his body, causing his bones to tremble and groan as though they were about to explode. Boom! A dark purple light bloomed on Zhou Wen's body as a purple-robed figure appeared in front of him. The light sent the Arch retreating a few steps before she stabilized herself. Devil King, you finally found yourself. You've made me wait too long. The Arch didn't look surprised. Instead, her eyes showed excitement. You deserve death, the Devil King said. Coldly. Yes, I do deserve death. I didn't take that step because I was waiting for you to kill me. The Arch seemed to be extremely satisfied when she saw the Devil King. Her eyes burned as she said, You weren't defeated in that battle back then, nor did I win. How can I take that step without defeating you? Then die. The Devil King looked at the Arch coldly, her eyes filled with killing intent. She was angry. Chapter 1895 One Step. Chapter 1895 One Step. In that battle, you were already at the end of your tether, and I couldn't win either. Now that we are fighting, we can truly decide who is the monarch of this world. Devil King you shall. Pa! Before the Arch could finish her sentence, a slap landed on the left side of her face, causing her face to jerk to the side. Blood splattered from the corner of her mouth. The Devil King stood in front of the Arch and looked at her without a word. Today you shall. The Arch shuttled over like a celestial object as she spoke again. Pa! Another slap landed on the left side of the Thearch's face, causing her face to jerk to the other side. The Devil King was still standing in front of her, looking at her coldly. Continue. The Devil King said coldly as she looked at the Arch. Today shall be the day of your death. The Arch stared at the Devil King and finally finished her sentence. Pa! Nothing happened after she said that other than the Devil King slapping her face again. Pa! 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 The Devil King slapped the Thearch's face repeatedly, using the front and back of her palm, causing her body to sway left and right, but she couldn't dodge or escape. The Devil King finally sent the Arch flying with a slap, and she collapsed on Destiny platform. A half-step Cosmic dares to spout nonsense about Destiny. Do you really think you are the sovereign of the universe? How insipid. The Devil King said expressionlessly as she looked at the Arch on the ground. Zhou Wen was dumbfounded. The invincible the Arch didn't even stand a chance against the Devil King. It was no wonder Truth Listener couldn't even withstand a glance. Even a half-step Cosmic was crushed, much less Truth Listener at the peak of the Apocalypse grade. You have already taken that step. The Thearch's face was swollen as blood seeped out of the corner of her mouth. However, her face wore no anger or indignation. Instead, she was very excited. She slowly got up and stared at the Devil King with a burning gaze. Is there a need? The Devil King said indifferently. As expected of the Devil King. So you have long taken that step. I'm such a joke. Here was I waiting for you to take that step together. This is good? Very good actually. It's better than I expected. The Arch looked at the Devil King as though she had gone mad. The space around her constantly distorted. Zhou Wen immediately felt that something was amiss. It wasn't just the space around the Arch that distorted. The entire world's space began to distort. No, it wasn't just spatial distortions. Even time began to distort. The people who had exploded to their deaths suddenly revived. The cube screen went haywire, and the battle that had completed replayed again. In fact, it wasn't a replay, but that the dead had been revived. Or rather,
Space-time had rewound to that moment before their deaths. On Earth, ancient people who had died decades, or even centuries ago, appeared on the streets in strange clothes, looking around blankly. Half of the street was filled with modern skyscrapers, but the other half was filled with ancient wooden houses. The sun and moon switched spots as the sea rose into the sky. The mountain peaks floated in the sky as the stars circled the sky. The world changed in a way resembling a mirage or a strange dream. Cracks appeared beneath the Thearchus' feet. The Destiny platform, which had experienced the wear and tear of countless years on which countless monarchs had fought, cracked. Demonic neonate. We can't let her continue, Jowan said to the Devil King. The Devil King ignored Jowan. Although she was half demonic neonate, she was also half Devil King. She had slapped the Arch in the face partially because of demonic neonate's anger. She didn't listen to Jowan because of her pride as Devil King. Yes, pride. Out of pride, she didn't stop the Arch from taking that step, nor was she willing to stop the Arch from taking that step. She just watched. Aircraft carriers brushed past ancient wooden boats in the middle of the sea and sky. Ancient fighter jets tore through fireworks before crashing into a building. The building collapsed, but it didn't smash into the street beside it because it had already turned into a barren land. Dinosaurs ran across the collapsed ruins. The entire city of Luoyang suddenly rose. Another ancient city appeared under Luoyang's city. Furthermore, it was still rising. Ancient cities rose up one after another ancient cities that had been destroyed by the river of time. The same situation happened in Guide Ancient City. Cities stacked on top of each other. There were cities beneath cities, like skyscrapers. In the ancient cities from different periods, humans wearing clothes from different periods looked at the sky in confusion. They were shocked by the scene in front of them. I've waited too long for this step. The Arch slowly took a step towards the Devil King. With this step, the dimensional mountains and rivers turned on their heads as many dimensional domains collapsed. The monarchs of the races who had died previously were also revived. A sun like God walked out of the sky and descended onto Inoxygus Divine Mountain with a smile. The Solarians were pleasantly surprised as they knelt before the sun like God and shouted, "My liege!" in unison. In the Khanate tomb that buried countless celestial thearchs, who had passed away walked out one after another. The 13 celestial thearchs looked down at the Khanate land. "Your Majesty!" The Khanates cried out in surprise. Some cried tears of joy. However, in the next moment, the gods instantly turned to dust and dissipated. With one step, the universe changed. Pa! Just as she took that step and arrived in front of the Devil King, her face was slapped to the side again. "That's more like it. Unfortunately, you're still too weak. Do I need to give you any further boost in courage?" The Devil King said indifferently as she looked at the Arch. This was what the Arch had said to Joe. 1. The Arch was stunned by the Devil King's slap. She had already taken that step and become a true cosmic grade, but she still couldn't dodge the Devil King's slap. After so many years of waiting and scheming, all of it seemed to be reduced to a joke thanks to this slap. The Arch had willingly stayed in Chess Mountain to keep her promise, but she hadn't been idle all these years. Chess Mountain was the closest to Earth's core, and Earth was the forbidden land of ancient times. It suffered the suppression of the forbidden land in ancient times. Over the years, the insights she had obtained made her stronger than before. She had reached a point where her word was a rule. A word could change the sun and moon, a word could defy life and death, and a word could bring things into existence. She didn't take that step. She only waited for the Devil King to appear for that final battle, and for the most brilliant moment to take that step. She wanted to trample over the Devil King to become king. Only then would she be a true monarch and be qualified to represent this universe. However, this slap pricked the bubble that was the Thearchus' endless weight. Chapter 1896 Newbie Training. Chapter 1896 Newbie Training. That's great. The Arch looked up at the endless universe as though she was relieved. She slowly retracted her gaze and looked at the Devil King in front of her. I've been looking forward to the day we fight again. I've been looking forward to a perfect outcome, but I've forgotten that anticipation isn't enough. I thought I had been working hard and preparing, but I neglected a fact. The world doesn't exist because of my expectations. I sealed myself in a world I was looking forward to, and never came out of it. Thank you for letting me take the step out. This is the Devil King I want. This is the battle I was really looking forward to. The Arch calmed down as she looked at the Devil King and continued slowly. I was a challenger in the past, and I'm still a challenger now. Devil King, let's begin again. As the Arch spoke, she was no longer as proud as a god who had everything in her control, nor was she as lofty as a monarch who controlled all power in the world. The Arch closed her eyes and crossed her hands in front of her voluptuous chest. She looked like a pious nun praying to God, but also like a priest asking the heavens for a gift. I wish that there were no more immortal Thearchs in this world. I wish that there were no more dimensional monarchs in this world. I wish to use everything to fight you. I wish to live for this one battle. As the Thearch made her wishes, the immortal glow on her body dissipated, revealing her ordinary woman-like figure. Her figure was like an immortal, but she no longer had any transcendent aura. She was just like an ordinary woman in the mortal world. Some kind of shackle seemed to crack on her body, making her more and more real. Looking at the ordinary girl with half the aura of an immortal monarch, the Devil King's eyes turned serious for the first time. Boom! The Destiny platform shattered beneath the Thearch's feet as boulders fell into an endless abyss. The two of them stood in midair as an invisible force swept through the entire world. Bang! Zhou felt his body being sent flying by the invisible force. He slammed into a planet and exploded it after flying for an unknown distance. Even someone as powerful as Zhou couldn't withstand that terrifying power, much less the other dimensional races. Countless dimensional creatures were sent flying by the terrifying force. They slammed through the spatial barrier and were thrown into Earth's universe. The other dimensional creatures were fine, but Zhou was severely injured by the terrifying power because he was too close to the battlefield. Zhou body slammed into a planet and finally stopped. He hurriedly got up to take a look, but he saw an unforgettable scene. The sky was split into two. One half was the starry sky, and the other half was the endless dimensional world. The starry sky was filled with supernovas. The dimensional world looked apocalyptic. Everything was disintegrating. Only two celestial bodies of light that resembled the sun and moon emitted unimaginable energy. Fluctuations. Under the clash of the Devil King and the Thearch's powers, Earth's universe was separating from the dimension. The potency could separate the two worlds. No, the potency was so powerful that it wanted to destroy everything. The two worlds had clearly been separated, but Earth's universe was still affected by that terrifying power. One star after another exploded. Even galaxies were instantly destroyed. Sweetie did her best to protect Earth, but the planets in the solar system exploded one after another. Pluto, Neptune, Uranus. Stars bloomed with aurora, and these were just a few specks of dust in the countless exploding stars. Stars exploded everywhere in the Milky Way as terrifying creatures rushed out of the exploding stars. The dimensional creatures that were thrown into the universe realized that this universe seemed to be even more terrifying than the dimension. There were extremely terrifying cosmic creatures awakening in the supernovas. However, the cosmic creatures didn't attack the dimensional creatures because they were also trembling in fear. Under the terrifying power, the universe was collapsing and shrinking, as though it was returning to the primordial atom when the universe first began. Devil King, you can't keep this up. The world can't withstand your battle at all. Zhou sent his thoughts to the dimension that had been stripped away, but he didn't receive any response. He wanted to rush into the dimensional zone, but he was repelled again and again. He couldn't rush in at all. Sweetie's strength had already begun to weaken. Zhou had no choice but to let Ninth Heaven's human sovereign return to Earth and protect the solar system with his supreme power. That was all Ninth Heaven's human sovereign was capable of. Just the aftershocks of the power made the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign have no choice but to resist with all his might. Cosmic grade? What kind of power is that? Zhou looked at the dimensional zone that resembled a mirage. A phenomenon looking like a solar eclipse emitted infinite energy. The entire universe trembled under the light of the two blazing suns. Countless creatures looked at the two blobs of light in horror. The sun and stars paled in comparison. The universe had an unprecedented two-sun wonder. Zhou had never seen or heard of a cosmic grade before. The apocalypse grade was already a limit of this world, and the cosmic grade clearly exceeded the limits of this world. It was a power that shouldn't have existed in this universe. It was enough to destroy the entire universe. Ninth Heaven's human sovereign and Sweetie struggled to hold on. Zhou knew that they couldn't last long. If this battle didn't end soon, the entire universe would probably be doomed. A power that transcends this universe? Zhou was unable to contact the Devil King, so he had already given up on the thought of dissuading her. He reached out and took out his phone. He quickly tapped an icon on the phone. It was the only game dungeon that came with the phone. When his mind entered the game, Zhou quickly appeared in Ant City. In the sky above Ant City, the girl-like Guardian was looking at him calmly. Are you ready? To his surprise, Ant City's Guardian spoke. Her voice was cold and heartless, like an electronically synthesized voice. Ready for what? Zhou was slightly taken aback as he asked the Ant City Guardian. Coordinates, Z14. Vitality value, 0.99. Hasn't reached the standard needed to initiate rookie training. Discovered abnormal energy fluctuations in Z14 spacetime. Detecting. Z14 spacetime is on course for destruction. Estimated to be completely destroyed in the 4 main universe hours. Emergency procedures activated. Rookie training activated. Please complete the rookie training in 4 main universe hours. Opening the door to the main universe. Chapter 1897 The Only Choice. Chapter 1897 The Only Choice. After Ant City's guardian said that, she suddenly moved, appearing in front of Zhou Wen like a ghost and striking his head. Zhou Wen's figure vanished as he moved through layers of space. He was in a constant instant transmission state, leaving behind afterimages everywhere in Ant City. However, the Ant City guardian's palm still struck him. Zhou Wen raised both hands to meet it as his unique new world power surged. Bang! Zhou Wen and the unique new world were shattered by the Ant City guardian's palm. His vision went black as he was kicked out of the game. The words, "Failed rookie training," appeared on his phone. Zhou Wen entered the game again. Ant City's guardian was still there. When he entered the game in the combat suit, everything felt more realistic. However, because he died too quickly, he hadn't had a chance to take it all in. Zhou Wen knew very well that the strength and speed of Ant City's guardian far exceeded his. She was likely a cosmic grade that he wasn't. She could kill him with just her strength and speed. Death didn't discourage him. Instead, he was overjoyed. What he wanted was cosmic grade power. Only by advancing to the cosmic grade could he participate in the battle between the Devil King and the Darch and stop them from destroying the entire universe. The rookie training on the phone wasn't prepared for him to begin with. He hadn't reached the standard required to activate the rookie training. Now that he had activated it by force, the only way was to have a breakthrough. Ant City's guardian struck out with her palm again. Zhou Wen knew that it was impossible for him to dodge. He couldn't even instant transmit. It was useless no matter how fast he was. Fight it out? It was even more impossible. The might of Ant City's guardian's palm could destroy the universe. The peak of the apocalypse grade was ultimately inferior to that strength. Since I can't dodge or fight her head on, I can only borrow her strength. Zhou Wen struck out at the Ant City guardian's palm, but this palm contained a suction force that drew upon Ant City guardian's power. However, the moment their hands came into contact, Zhou Wen's palm shattered. His arm and body exploded as he died before he could use the borrowed strength himself. Failed rookie training. Standing in front of Ant City's guardian again, Zhou Wen chose to take the initiative to attack. All his strength transformed into countless sword beams that poured towards Ant City's guardian like a galaxy. Bang! The sword beams that filled the sky shattered as a palm grabbed Zhou Wen's head and crushed it. Failed rookie training. He failed again and again. Zhou Wen changed his powers and combat strategy every time, but the outcome was surprisingly identical. He couldn't even withstand a single strike from Ant City's guardian. This was an absolute suppression. At the end of the day, the apocalypse grade was still within the mythical stage. The stages of terror, calamity, and apocalypse were only at the mythical stage, but cosmic had already exceeded the mythical stage. The repeated deaths didn't discourage him. Instead, he kept improving in terms of strength and speed. He could also raise his strength and speed, using the battle's pressure. Unfortunately, no matter how fast or strong he was, he couldn't withstand the palm of Ant City's guardian. This won't do. No matter how I improve, they are ultimately within the rules of this universe. As for Ant City's guardian's palm, it can destroy an entire universe. Therefore, no matter how strong or how fast I am, it's useless. Only by exceeding the rules of this universe can I block that palm. Zhou Wen already knew the reason for his loss, but how could he surpass the rules of this universe? He was born and raised here. He was a part of this universe, so how could he transcend it? Zhou Wen thought of the Devil King and the Darch. Their strength had already exceeded the rules of the universe. They were undoubtedly at the cosmic grade. He didn't know how the Devil King's strength exceeded the rules of the universe. However, the Darch had previously demonstrated very well. She used her wish to shatter the rules of the universe. While abandoning herself, she also abandoned the universe that gave birth to her. At the same time, she also gained independence. That was already a very clear path. If Zhou Wen wanted to take that path, he had to use his new world power to resist the power of the universe. When the new world power exceeded the rules of the shattered universe, he would advance to the cosmic grade. However, if he advanced to cosmic like this, his strength would be the same as the Darch and the Devil King. Once he unleashed his strength, it would have a huge influence on the universe. The battle between the Devil King and the Darch nearly caused the universe to collapse. If he participated in the battle, it would only speed up its collapse. If he advanced to the cosmic level like that, it would be no different from a failure. This was also the path Ant City's guardian had pointed out to him. He was to advance to the cosmic grade before the universe was destroyed. From there, he could open the so-called door to the universe and head to the main universe. That way, Zhou could live, but his family and friends would be destroyed with the universe. Perhaps the Devil King and the Arch could survive, but the others would definitely die. No, that's not my path. My path has never changed. What I need isn't destruction. Zhou looked at the Ant City Guardian's palm. That struck again, as the power of the unique new world erupted again. Bang! Zhou body shattered again. He had failed. Again. Zhou didn't enter the game again. He stood in the cosmos, and sensed the universe that was about to be destroyed. The stars exploded as the universe collapsed. Every creature fled in fear. Even the cosmic creatures flew around like frightened birds. The entire universe was within Zhou perception, but he suddenly retracted his gaze. This universe was just too big. It was so big that it was unreal. Zhou gaze constantly converged. Supercluster, galactic cluster, local group. Milky Way galaxy, Gould belt, local bubble, local interstellar cloud, Oort cloud, solar system, Earth, East district, guide ancient city. His vision constantly narrowed and focused before finally landing on the familiar faces. Yer, Wang Lu, Li Xian, Ouyang Lan, Zhou Lingfeng, and Jing, Zhang Yuji, Feng Qiuyan, Ming Xiao Qinzhen. One familiar face after another flashed through Zhou eyes. Zhou suddenly came to a realization and understood why he had always rejected advancing to the Apocalypse grade using the Lost Immortal Sutra's path, and why he insisted on advancing to the Apocalypse grade in an imperfect form. That path represented destruction and rebirth. Without destruction, there was no construction. The birth of a new universe meant the death of an old universe. Advancing to the cosmic grade meant creating a new universe, and the new world was actually an embryonic form or seed of the new universe. This seed absorbed nutrients in the old universe and germinated. It grew to a point where it could replace the old universe. It basically meant the old universe's doom. Of course, there were strong and weak, big and small universes. A powerful universe might give birth to a few new universes, but it might not completely perish. However, this universe had already given birth to the Devil King and the Arch. If he used this method to advance to the cosmic grade, would this universe be able to withstand it? Or would it immediately collapse? Zhou didn't dare or wish to take the risk. Why must something be destroyed before it can be created to form a new universe? This universe gave birth to me and raised me. There are people in this land who gave me life, and there are also people I cherish. No matter how imperfect it is, no matter how ugly it is, no matter how scarred it is or how close it is to death, this is the most perfect world that I want in my heart. It is also my only choice. From the moment I was born, this was already destined. Zhou looked up as his eyes gradually became firm. The power of the unique new world spread out and gradually fused with the shattered universe. Chapter 1898 Slap. Chapter 1898 Slap. Under the combined protection of Ninth Heaven's human sovereign and Sweetie, Earth was temporarily spared from being implicated, but the damage it had previously suffered left Earth in ruins. Guide Ancient City was at the top of the layers of ancient cities. Most of the humans who had turned into animals had returned to their original appearances thanks to the influence of the Ninth Heaven's human sovereign's power. Even so, they still felt their hearts tremble when they saw the mirage-like scene in the sky. The dimension looked like an apocalyptic scene. The ground cracked, and the mountains and seas hung upside down. There were ruins everywhere, and nebulae burst out all over the universe. This scene made everyone feel like ants. A random step from someone would most probably trample the entire race to their deaths. Wang Lu closed her eyes and prayed. Yer looked up at the starry sky while in Ouyang Lan's arms. Just as everyone was feeling alarmed, they suddenly felt the ground tremble. The overlapping ancient cities were sinking and dissipating bit by bit. The crumbling mountains and rivers, as well as the collapsed buildings, quickly returned to their original states. All sorts of fragments rose strangely and returned to their original spots. Like restoring shattered mirrors, the people who had died in the calamity were miraculously revived. Collapsed skyscrapers stood tall in the city again. All sorts of plants were restored as greenery once again covered the land. The seawater that surged towards the continent receded, and the toppled mountains returned to their original places. Under the influence of the terrifying power, the planet that had deviated from its orbit returned to its original orbit. Space, in its shattered form, shimmered again. Upon seeing this unbelievable scene, everyone was pleasantly surprised. They imagined that a god had appeared and stopped this terrifying calamity. In space, Many cosmic creatures looked at the recovering universe and roared excitedly. However, the creatures from the dimension were all filled with worry. Earth's universe was recovering, but everything in the dimension was still en route towards destruction. The black and white lights were destroying everything. In the past, they yearned to rush into Earth's universe, but now, they yearned to return home. Unfortunately, their home was already devastated. The creatures of the two worlds looked at the illusory dimensional scene when they suddenly saw a person fly into the sky and walk towards the illusory dimensional zone. The person walked to the separated boundary between the dimension and Earth's universe. With a pull of his hands, the two were pulled back together like a curtain. He walked into the dimensional zone just like that. Wherever he walked, everything would recover and everything beneath his feet would revive. It was just like a second coming at the end of days. In front of him were the ruins of the world, but behind him was a flourishing world. Every step he took restored everything in the world to its original position. Mountains and rivers were restored, and everything was reborn.
A god has finally appeared.
The various dimensional races were so excited that they nearly cried.
Human sovereign is back.
After the humans identified the figure, they were so excited that they couldn't control themselves. Their human sovereign had returned.
Young Master One, has he become a god?
And Shum was pleasantly surprised and couldn't help but cry out.
That's more like it.
And Tienz was snorted. Coldly, but his eyes were filled with joy.
As expected of my man.
Tsukuyomi looked at the figure in the city with a proud expression. The Devil King and the Arch, who were crazily unleashing their strength, suddenly felt that something was amiss. They felt as though their strength was weakening. No, it shouldn't be said that their strength was weakening, but everything around them had changed. The space that could originally be torn apart with a glance from them remained unmoved. Every blade of grass, tree, and flower seemed to turn into divine objects. Their strength was unable to damage them.
What happened to this world?
The Devil King and the Arch couldn't help but stop fighting and look at the bizarre world. They were alarmed and puzzled to discover that Jowen was walking over. Every step he took was causing a strange change in the world. Everything they had destroyed was restored behind him. Their eyes couldn't help but focus. Jowen had actually taken that step. He had become a cosmic existence. However, what they couldn't understand was that after breaking through to the cosmic grade, one had to sever ties with the universe. However, Jowen seemed to fuse with the universe without being ostracized by the rules of the universe.
Are you guys done fooling around?
Jowen walked in front of them and said calmly. Jowen stopped, but his magical power didn't stop. It went beyond Jowen's body and spread throughout the dimension, restoring the ruins like dimension to its original state. Even the shattered destiny platform and the staircase had returned. The Arch and the Devil King were standing on destiny platform. The cubes emitted light again, illuminating the myriad worlds, transmitting their images and voices to every corner of the universe. All the creatures in the world were paying attention to the three figures. Be it dimensional creatures or humans, they silently prayed that Jowen could defeat the two terrifying women.
Devil King, are you going to discipline your man, or do you want me to do it for you?
The Arch looked at the Devil King and said, not taking Jowen seriously. So what if he advanced to the cosmic grade? Without a transcendent realm, even if he advanced to the cosmic grade, he too would be thrashed just like when she first advanced to the cosmic grade. She couldn't even withstand a single slap from the Devil King. Anyone could tell that Jowen was still one with the universe and hadn't transcended.
This is a battle between us. It has nothing to do with you,
the Devil King said to Jowen. Jowen looked at the two unparalleled existences, one immortal and one devil, and didn't get angry because of their words. Instead, he laughed. He walked between the Arch and the Devil King and said calmly,
let's end it here. Stop fooling around. Since you don't have the ability to discipline him, let me discipline him for you.
After the Arch said to the Devil King, she glanced at Jowen and said coldly,
come over.
A single sentence was enough to make her wish come true. Her voice seemed to make the world bow its head. Due to her words, Jowen walked towards her and arrived in front of her.
Slap your mouth,
the Arch said again. She wanted Jowen to slap himself. This was also a slap to the Devil King's face. Jowen extended his palm, but it didn't land on his face. Instead, he reached out and grabbed the Arch. Under the Thearcha's astonished gaze, her body was lifted up by Jowen and pressed down on Destiny platform.
Slap my mouth, huh?
Jowen extended his palm and slapped the Thearcha's buttocks, stunning her. She lay there in a daze as her pupils constricted. Her face was filled with shock as her mind went blank. Chapter 1899 Guardian Egg. Chapter 1899 Guardian Egg. The Thearka's body trembled violently in rage when she realized what had happened. It was fine if she was slapped in the face by the Devil King. After all, she was the Devil King, the former lord of the dimension, an unparalleled existence. The Dharch didn't find it embarrassing to be slapped in the face by the Devil King, but to be spanked by a punk like a child in front of all the creatures of the two worlds made the Dharch feel an unconcealable humiliation. It was worse than killing her. It wasn't just the Dharch. All the immortals lowered their heads when they saw this scene. The greatest existence of the immortals had actually been spanked. They felt ashamed. The other races wore odd expressions. It was clearly a battle that concerned the survival of the universe, but for some reason, they found the mood turning odd. The Thearka's wish powers bloomed from her body as she suddenly attempted to stand up. However, she felt as though she was being suppressed by an unimaginable force. No matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't escape from Zhou Wen's palm. The Dharch was shocked. She couldn't fathom how Zhou Wen could be so strong despite being at the cosmic grade like her. It was impossible. Pa! Zhou Wen slapped the Thearka's buttocks again.
Do you now know who's in charge here? This universe is now under my protection. If you dare do anything rash, what follows won't be as simple as a spanking.
As Zhou Wen spoke, he grabbed the Dharch and held her under his armpit with one arm. The Dharch couldn't escape, no matter how she struggled. They were both at the cosmic grade, but the Dharch had only absorbed a portion of the power of this universe to produce her own cosmic power. However, Zhou Wen had been augmented by the entire universe's power. Compared to Zhou Wen's cosmic power, the Thearka's cosmic power was like a son to a father. Unless the Dharch took a step further and continued raising her cosmic power to the level of the universe, no creature in the universe could fight Zhou Wen. The Dharch wanted to become monarch, but Zhou Wen was the person who decided on the position. How could she fight Zhou Wen? Zhou Wen looked at the Devil King and her expression immediately changed. She turned around and wanted to teleport away. She didn't want to be spanked in public like the Dharch. However, the spacetime around the Devil King's body changed as a huge hand reached out. Zhou Wen clamped the Devil King with his other arm and vanished with the Devil King and the Dharch. The cubes in various parts of the universe dimmed at the same time, and nothing could be seen.
What's going on?
The creatures in the universe looked at each other, momentarily at a loss for words.
A calamity that nearly destroyed the universe ended just like that? What's going on?
And Shun was dumbfounded. His daughter was born at the apocalypse grade, making him feel smug for quite some time, but now, Zhou Wen had actually snatched away two women who could destroy the universe. He was inhuman. Zhou Wen didn't plan on killing the Dharch because she was someone who wanted to leave. And he too planned on leaving. Zhou Wen was already an invincible existence in this universe, but it was different after he left. Without the augmentation of the universe's power, Zhou Wen was like the Devil King and the Dharch a cosmic existence. With a companion by his side, wouldn't it be better to have more cannon fodder in the face of death? As for the Devil King, she was demonic neonate. After so many years of relationship, it was even more impossible for Zhou Wen to kill her. After he left, the Devil King would be an important aid to Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen carried the Dharch and the Devil King back to guide Ancient City. After letting them go, the Devil King stood there obediently. A strange glint flashed in the Thearka's eyes, as some kind of power seemed to surge in Zhou Wen's body. Zhou Wen knew that this was the wish power she had left in him after losing to her. However, such wish power couldn't injure Zhou Wen further. With a thought, the wish powers backlashed, turning the Dharch into a flower.
Can't you just live in peace?
Zhou Wen glanced at the flower on the ground and waved his hand. The flower vanished. Then, he extended his hand and beckoned at the Devil King. The Devil King immediately returned to him. However, when Zhou Wen looked at her stats again, there were still question marks behind the Devil King. Her stats remained a mystery to him. Taking out his phone, Zhou Wen entered Ant City again. After entering Ant City, Zhou Wen immediately lost the augmentation of the cosmic powers. However, he was already at the cosmic grade, even without the augmentation of cosmic powers. Looking at his stats, he realized that his stats on the phone were the same as the Devil King's. They were both question marks. Clearly, the phone couldn't show the stats of cosmic grade creatures.
Energy detection. Vitality has reached 1. Rookie training activated.
Ant City's guardian came in front of Zhou Wen again. She struck out with her palm. Zhou Wen managed to block the palm he couldn't previously. When their palms clashed, Zhou Wen and the Ant City guardian took a step back. It was a draw. After being on the same level of life, the Ant City guardian that Zhou Wen originally found invincible no longer had that suppressive might from before. Zhou Wen's combat skills were far above the Ant City guardian. With both of them having similar strength, Zhou Wen could easily block the Ant Guardian's attacks regardless of how ferocious they were. Bang! Zhou Wen sent the Ant City Guardian flying. With a punch, her body slammed into the wall and transformed into vanishing fragments. A companion egg dropped. Killed Ant City Guardian. Discovered Guardian Egg. Rookie training completed. Cosmic system unlocked. Unlocking. Insufficient cosmic energy. Unlocking failed. Please return to the main universe to complete the unlocking. Please use a cosmic coin to open the door to the main universe. As the notification sounded in-game, Zhou Wen didn't know what cosmic coins were. His heart suddenly stirred as he took out the crystal slab from before. Cosmic coin detected. Do you wish to use the cosmic coin to open the door to the main universe? A notification immediately popped up on the phone. Zhou Wen hesitated for a moment before picking up the Guardian Egg. The Guardian Egg immediately transformed into a beam of light that fused into Zhou Wen's body. Ant City Guardian, Rookie's unique guardian? He switched off the phone and put away the cosmic coin. The truth was right in front of him, but he didn't know if he would return alive. He wanted to bid farewell to his family first. Chapter 1900 The Last Supper. Chapter 1900 The Last Supper.
Are you really leaving? You still have a choice,
Zhou Lingfeng said as he drank his tea.
I wish to head out to take a look,
Zhou Wen said.
So what if you see it? What if you can't withstand it?
Zhou Lingfeng put down the teacup and asked Zhou Wen.
I might regret seeing it, but I'll always regret it if I don't,
Zhou Wen said with a smile.
That's true. Instead of living the rest of life in regret, you might as well die a quick death.
Zhou Lingfeng smiled and said.
From the looks of it, I have to work harder. If my main account is crippled, I can only power level my smurf.
Zhou Wen was somewhat speechless. He could never keep up with Zhou Lingfeng's train of thought.
Tell Ouyang Lan yourself. If there's a need, you can also tell her the truth,
Zhou Lingfeng suddenly said seriously. Zhou Wen pondered for a moment before shaking his head.
There's no need. It's good to let Jing be her child. If I fail to return, I'll just be making her sad for no reason. Then have a meal with her.
Zhou Lingfeng sighed.
All right.
Zhou Wen nodded.
You should meet Tianzhua too,
Zhou Lingfeng said again. Zhou Wen shook his head and said.
No. No matter what, you are brothers.
What?
Grudge can't be resolved?
Zhou Lingfeng said with a bitter smile.
There's no grudge between us. I'm just not used to it. Same for him. It's perfectly fine the way it is,
Zhou Wen said with a smile.
Seriously? Forget it. I'll leave it up to you.
Zhou Lingfeng shook his head helplessly. That night, Zhou Wen ate with Ouyang Lan and Zhou Lingfeng. Yer and Jing were there. Yer stayed by Zhou Wen's side the entire time. And Jing lowered her head and ate without saying a word.
Come, our hero who saved the world. Here's a toast.
Ouyang Lan was very happy as she kept pouring wine and toasting Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen didn't reject her. After a few glasses, Ouyang Lan became a little tipsy. She danced with Zhou Wen. She was even more straightforward than a man, but she wasn't good with alcohol.
Zhou Wen, did I treat you well?
Ouyang Lan's face flushed red as she wrapped her arms around his shoulder.
Excellent,
Zhou Wen said with a nod.
You are Lingfeng's son, which means you are my son. It's been so long, but you haven't called me mom. Have I not done enough?
Zhou Wen was slightly taken aback as he was momentarily at a loss for an answer.
Or am I not good enough for you to call me mom?
Ouyang Lan said angrily.
Of course you are good enough. You are my mother,
Zhou Wen said.
No, you have to seriously call me mom,
Ouyang Lan said.
Mom,
Zhou Wen called out with mixed feelings.
My good son, I can now tell everyone that my son is the hero who saved the world.
Ouyang Lan staggered to her feet and raised her glass.
Come, a toast to my good son.
With that said, Ouyang Lan downed the wine in her cup.
That's enough. Stop drinking,
Zhou Lingfeng persuaded.
Why not? I'm happy today. Let's drink till we drop. Am I right, son?
Ouyang Lan grabbed the bottle again and poured herself some wine. Ouyang Lan eventually collapsed from drinking. Zhou Lingfeng carried her back to her room before Zhou Wen got up to leave.
Are you leaving?
And Jing suddenly said from behind Zhou Wen.
Yeah.
Zhou Wen nodded.
Will you return?
And Jing's words made Zhou Wen realize that he had misunderstood her. First question.
How did you know I was leaving?
Zhou Wen turned around and asked in Jing.
The Larch said that she wants to leave.
A
person like you would have the same thoughts as her, right?
And Jing said.
Yes, I'm leaving. I don't know if I can return.
Zhou Wen sighed. Even Jing could tell, so how could Ouyang Lan not? She didn't say a word despite drinking so much. It must have been a huge blow to her. Goodbye, and Jing said as she turned to leave. It surprised Zhou. And Jing was calm like her name, nothing like before. Zhou went out and walked the streets of Guide Ancient City. Although it was almost midnight, the streets were still brightly lit. After walking for a short distance, he saw a person sitting on the stone steps by the street. It was Jing Daoxian.
What are you doing here?
Zhou had come here because he knew that Jing Daoxian was here. Otherwise, why would he need to walk? He could go anywhere with a mere thought.
Can I take a look at the Essence Energy art Wang Mingyuan left behind?
Jing Daoxian asked.
No,
Zhou replied.
Then there's nothing I can do. Kill me,
Jing Daoxian said as he stood up and walked in front of Zhou.
Why? Are you sick of living?
Zhou looked at Jing Daoxian's expression. He didn't seem to be joking. He really looked like he wanted to die.
You've become a god, and my path has been severed. I can't take that step, so death is my only solution.
Jing Daoxian pointed at Zhou and said,
I know you have something that can turn a dead person into a companion beast. Kill me and turn me into your companion beast. Take me with you. Do you know what that means?
Not everyone
can become a companion beast after death. Even if you succeed, you will lose all your past memories. It can be said that it's no longer you. Are you sure you want that?
Zhou said to Jing Daoxian. The reason the Devil King could find herself again was that she had left her devil spirit behind in advance. It was equivalent to leaving behind an avatar with her past memories. By fusing with the avatar, she could be considered to have found a portion of herself. Wang Mingyuan and Jing Daoxian didn't have such things. If they became companion beasts, there was no coming back.
It doesn't matter. If I can't improve further, what's the difference between living and dying? There's nothing unknown in life. To me, I'm already a dead person.
As Jing Daoxian spoke, blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Zhou frowned slightly. He realized that Jing Daoxian's vitality had been severed. He was killing himself. From the looks of it, he was really bent on death.
Then let's see your luck.
Zhou pulled out the human sovereign stone saber and stabbed it into Jing Daoxian's heart.
Thank you.
Jing Daoxian slowly closed his eyes. People came and went on the streets, but no one could see Jing Daoxian and Zhou. It was as though they didn't exist. Seeing Jing Daoxian completely lose his life, Zhou was wondering if the dead man tree would react to him when his phone vibrated. The dead man tree indeed reacted. Zhou watched as Jing Daoxian's corpse turned into points of light and was sucked into the dead man tree. Another fruit grew on the tree. You won the bet again, but was it really worth it? Zhou sighed and put away his phone. He recalled the 2 companion eggs Wang Mingyuan had left behind. After taking them out, he hatched them. Indeed, it was the same as the information he had previously read. One was the Yin reincarnation flower, while the other was the Yang reincarnation flower. The 2 plants had 2 leaves, one blue and one red, with flowers growing on the top. The roots below danced around Zhou, one like 2 pixie-like companion beasts. Zhou focused his gaze, and his body trembled. There was a transparent bead in each of the 2 flower pistils. There was an extremely tiny baby curled up in each bead, as though they were in their mother's womb. Upon closer inspection, the 2 babies looked familiar. As expected of teacher, Zhou pondered for a moment before taking a step forward and disappearing. When he appeared again, he was already in front of Lu Yun.
Eldest senior brother, I have something I need your help with.
Zhou summoned the 2 reincarnation flowers and made them float in front of Lu Yun.
These are...
Lu Yun looked at the babies in the beads and immediately looked at Zhou in surprise.
Help me raise them.
With a thought, the 2 reincarnation flowers were transferred to Lu Yun. Even if he managed to leave, his survival remained a mystery. He wouldn't take them with him to their deaths.
Are you leaving?
Lu Yun asked Zhou.
It's as though everyone in the world knows that I'm leaving.
Zhou smiled bitterly.
Haha, who asked you to be human sovereign? If you don't leave, many people know it should be said that many creatures will feel terrible.
Lu Yun said with a laugh.
Why?
Zhou was puzzled.
Who likes to call others daddy forever?
You? Haha. Aren't their father?
Lu Yun chuckled. Now that you mention it, I should head over and hear them call me daddy before I leave.
Zhou also laughed. Chapter 1901 Artifact Seal. Chapter 1901 Artifact Seal. On Inoxidus Divine Mountain, a person slowly walked over the mountain. When he arrived in front of the temple at the top of the mountain, many Solarians bowed to him with the highest etiquette. At the same time, they said in unison,
The Solarians welcome our liege. Zhou swept his gaze across everyone before landing on the face of the leading Solarian Holy Lord. He said indifferently, "Bring me your race artifact." The expressions of the Solarian Holy Lord and the numerous Solarians changed. The Solarian Holy Lord looked up at Zhou and asked, "May I know what your majesty wants our race artifact for?" "To seal Earth and re-establish the ancient seals." Zhou said indifferently, "Your majesty, this is unfair. You are the dimensional king. How can you quell the masses of this great injustice, using our race artifact to form a human seal?" The Solarian Holy Lord said angrily, "What's justice? Is it justice for the dimension to invade Earth? Is it justice for the Solarians to kill humans? Or is it justice only if you Solarians become king?" Zhou said coldly, "I'm a king, but I'm even more human. The human race will naturally prosper as a result. If you aren't happy with that, endure it. If you can't, perish." The Solarian Holy Lord broke out into a cold sweat as he pleaded, "How can my race dare to be at odds with your majesty? Since your majesty wants the race artifact, we will naturally offer it up. However, I wonder how my race will be dealt with in the future. I'll establish new rules. The world will be in theft. The various races will each possess their own territory. There will be a battle on Destiny platform every 100 years. If your race has someone who can defy the heavens and change their fate, they can fight on the Destiny platform. The victor is king, and the loser is vilified. Success means prosperity. Defeat means lying low and waiting for the next century battle." Zhou said indifferently, "Can humans participate in the battle?" Solarian Holy Lord asked. "Of course," Zhou answered. "Will your majesty participate in the battle?" The Solarian Holy Lord asked again. "Would a century battle be needed if I were to participate in the battle?" Zhou said, indifferently. "The dimensional races shall be witnesses. Us Solarians are willing to offer up our race artifact, and shall await your majesty's institution of the new rules and destiny. We will participate in the century battle." The Solarian Holy Lord offered the Solarians' race artifact, the Great Light Wheel, with both hands. Zhou put away the Great Light Wheel and casually swiped his hand. Inoxidus Divine Mountain formed an independent space as space was sliced apart. Furthermore, this independent space was sealed, preventing it from making contact with the outside world. The Solarian will rise again at the Battle of Destiny in 100 years. The powerhouses of the various races of the dimension were watching this scene with extremely complicated expressions. Zhou went to all the races in the dimension and confiscated their race artifacts. None of them dared to disobey him. The dimensional races were separated into independent spaces. From then on, they were no longer connected and evolved independently. Zhou returned to Earth's universe with the various race artifacts. He gestured a few times, returning the nebulae to their rightful spots as the race artifacts fell towards Earth like a meteor shower. Every time a race artifact landed on Earth, it added a mysterious nomological force to Earth. After the race artifacts entered Earth, their artifact spirits automatically found a dimensional zone and entered. In the blink of an eye, they vanished. The corresponding dimensional zone would also undergo a tremendous change. With all the artifacts on Earth, the rules of order were like layers of chains that firmly sealed Earth. However, it was different from before. In the past, the power that sealed Earth imprisoned Earth's energy and nomological system. And this time, Zhou had sealed Earth with all the race artifacts. He had condensed the power of all sorts of dimensional laws on Earth, causing Earth's energy to almost be visible to the naked eye. All sorts of nomological powers were within reach. It was difficult not to become stronger after being born in such an amazing place. It was nothing for someone to be born a mythical in the future. Furthermore, with the race artifact seal, those terrifying cosmic creatures were unable to enter Earth. It ensured Earth's safety for years to come. Powerhouses who originally couldn't advance to the mythical stage with their human bodies could now easily advance to the mythical stage, just by taking in the rules of the world. They no longer had any restrictions. Countless people cried tears of joy, and countless people shouted human sovereign's name in unison, unwilling to stop for a long time. At that moment, everyone from the Cape family wore a gloomy expression. The Dimension's race artifacts had descended all over Earth, but only the Cape family didn't receive a single one. They unfortunately sensed that the energy in the Cape family's area was much thinner than elsewhere. If they cultivated in such a place, the Cape family would probably decline with each generation. Even their children would be weaker than others. "Human sovereign is unfair!" A young man from the Cape family roared angrily. "Pa!" The Cape family head slapped him in the face and said coldly, "It's already a great favor that we weren't wiped out. Why are you spouting nonsense? Do you want to bring about the extermination of our Cape family? The young men fell silent. Thinking back to the grudge between the Cape family and Jowen, they indeed had to be grateful that they hadn't been wiped out. Although they were indignant, they had to endure it. The present Earth was no longer the former Earth. When Jowen reached Giant City, he found that it had also undergone a tremendous change. Even more terrifying energy surged into the city. This was Gaia's sanctuary. It was originally one of the core areas of Earth. Several race artifacts had flown into Giant City, sending infinite energy in. Tsukuyomi and Jowen's companion beasts, who were absorbing energy in Giant City's temples, quickly broke through. Advancing to the Calamity grade was as simple as eating and drinking. Tsukuyomi was the first to break through to the Apocalypse grade. Imperial Lord Behemoth also broke through to the Apocalypse grade. All the companion beasts advanced crazily.
Honey, is this worldly energy your gift to me?
Tsukuyomi, who was wearing a long moonlight muslin dress and looking like a goddess, walked out of Giant City. She was like a bride waiting to be married. She exuded mystery, beauty, sexiness, and a charm. It was almost unforgettable.
I'm leaving. I'm taking these companion beasts with me,
Jowen said.
Where to?
Tsukuyomi was slightly taken aback.
I'm leaving this world and heading to that unknown land,
Jowen answered.
Honey, I'll wait here obediently for your return, just like a woman waiting for her husband's return,
Tsukuyomi said silently.
There's no need to wait for me. I might not be able to return,
Jowen said.
You can't say that. After all, my heart has been stolen by you. In the future, I will be yours in life and your ghost in death. If you don't return for a day, I'll wait for a day. If you don't return for the rest of your life, I'll wait a lifetime for you. If not this lifetime, the next. In short, I'll keep waiting until the day you return to put on the wedding dress for me,
Tsukuyomi said with a smile. Jowen shook his head speechlessly. He hadn't said that he wanted to marry Tsukuyomi. After some thought, Jowen handed one of the race artifacts he had reserved to Tsukuyomi.
This is an artifact from the dimensional moon gods. It should be of some use to you.
Tsukuyomi took the race artifact and her eyes seemed to turn red.
Honey, is this a token of our love? I'll definitely cherish it. Don't worry. I'll wear it and wait for your return. I love you.
Jowen didn't know what to say. He had already decided to take that step. He couldn't accept such feelings, much less let Tsukuyomi face the unknown risk with him. Furthermore, Tsukuyomi didn't have the ability to leave, so Jowen could only turn around and leave without a word. After Jowen's figure vanished, Tsukuyomi's expression immediately changed. She pouted and muttered to herself.
It's not that easy to run. If you can leave, I can leave as well. Let's see where you can run when I take that step to catch up to you.
And Sheng was eating when he suddenly realized that Jowen was sitting beside him. He jumped in fright.
Young Master One, you know that you can scare someone to death?
Chapter 1902 Farewell. Chapter 1902 Farewell.
It's fine even if you get scared to death. I'll pull you from death's grasps.
Jowen smiled.
Young Master One, having already offended those dimensional fellows, why are you giving them a way out?
And Sheng didn't understand why Jowen was giving them a chance to fight in the century battle after dividing the dimensional races.
I'm not leaving a path for them, but leaving some challenges for humanity. Isn't it very boring to just sit around until death comes?
Jowen smiled and said,
Although I'm also human, I have to admit that humans are naturally warlike. If there are no foreign enemies, I'm afraid there will be constant internal strife. That's true, but aren't you afraid that humans will end up destroyed?
And Sheng said with a smile,
If humanity gets destroyed under such conditions, it can only mean that humanity deserves it. It's fine if it's destroyed,
Jowen said indifferently.
That's true.
And Sheng looked at Jowen and asked,
When are you leaving? I have some matters to settle. I'll leave after I'm done.
As Jowen spoke, a strange glow suffused his body as companion beast tattoos appeared. Jowen reached out and grabbed the tattoos, tearing them off his body and enveloping them in a halo. The tattoos were torn off by Jowen and transformed into balls of light. There were a total of 7 or 8 of them, including Imperial Lord Behemoth and Mystic the Arch, who had just advanced to the Apocalypse grade.
I have no use for these companion beasts. Give them to whoever you deem fit.
As Jowen spoke, he took out 2 more race artifacts and handed them to Sheng.
Keep these 2 race artifacts and see if you can use them.
And Sheng looked at the 2 race artifacts. One of them was a spirit race artifact, so he narrowed his eyes and said with a smile,
Young Master One, don't worry. I'll definitely deliver them to the person who needs them. It's up to you to decide. There's no need to tell me. I should leave.
Jowen got up and prepared to leave.
Young Master Wen, you have to come back. And Sheng called out to Zhou Wen. I hope so. Zhou Wen didn't look back as he took a step forward and vanished. Zhou Wen visited his family and friends one by one and left some companion beasts for them. He had no use for them in the future. Leaving it to them was a guarantee that they could gain a foothold on Earth in the future. When he stepped into Wang Lu's yard, he saw her sitting in the pavilion. There were 2 filled wine glasses on the stone table. One glass was in front of Wang Lu, while the other was opposite her. However, there was no one opposite Wang Lu. Sit. Let's have a drink. When Wang Lu saw Zhou Wen, she combed her hair and raised the wine glass in her hand. Zhou Wen sat down and gently clinked his wine glass with Wang Lu. I wish you all the best, Wang Lu said as she downed the wine in her glass. Thank you. Zhou Wen also drained his glass. Zhou Wen knew that Wang Lu didn't lack companion beasts, but he took out a companion beast and placed it in front of her. Banana Fairy has been with me for many years. I won't need her in the future. Take her with you. All right. Wang Lu took the ball of light and immediately contracted it. Banana Fairy's immortal-like figure immediately appeared beside Wang Lu and sat on a banana leaf. She seemed to be on a swing as she floated around Wang Lu. I'll give you a gift too. Please take it, Wang Lu said as she took out something from her pocket and held it between her fingers. It was a very ordinary $1 coin commonly seen in the Federation. On one side was the number 1, and on the other side was a flower. Thank you, Zhou Wen said with a smile as he took the coin. Do you still remember how many breakfasts you owe me from when we were still at school? Wang Lu said with a smile. I remember. I'm afraid I won't have the chance to repay you in the future. Zhou Wen couldn't help but smile when he recalled his school days. That might have been the most beautiful and comfortable period of his life. As a person, you have to keep your word. You have to repay what you owe. You are human sovereign and also the king of dimensions. Such a hero wouldn't go back on his word, right? Wang Lu said jokingly. All right, I'll repay you when I return. Zhou Wen nodded seriously. It's a deal then. I'll wait for you to buy me breakfast, Wang Lu said with a smile. After leaving Wang Lu's place, Zhou Wen returned to the City Lord Manor. Li Xian was sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, watching the news. Feng Qiuyan, Ming Xiu, and Qin Jin were also there. When they saw Zhou Wen return, the 3 of them stood up. You're back? Li Xian remained sitting on the sofa as he asked casually. That's right. I'm back. Sit down. Zhou Wen sat down beside Li Xian and casually threw the 3 race artifacts to Feng Qiuyan, Ming Xiu, and Qin Jin. Keep them as a memento. This is the Phaseless Race Artifact, Phaseless Ring, Feng Qiuyan said in surprise when he saw the race artifact in his hand. The Eye of the Inter-Race. Ming Xiu was also alarmed. Back when they went to the dimension, they had gone to these 2 races. Qin Jin held her race artifact in silence before putting it away. I'm your coach after all. I have to leave you something before I leave, Zhou Wen said as he took out some companion beasts and threw them to them. Coach, you'll need these things when you leave. Before Feng Qiuyan could finish his sentence, Zhou Wen interrupted him with a wave of his hand. If I need to rely on these companion beasts to save my life, there's no way I'll live. This is for you. Zhou Wen handed another race artifact to Li Xian. Me too? Li Xian was somewhat surprised. It's not for you. This is the Evil Ghost's race artifact. I remember that your second brother, Li Maobai, went to the Evil Ghosts back then, am I right? Zhou Wen said. Why are you giving me something for him? Li Xian said unhappily. I don't know him. There's no reason for me to give him something. I've given it to you. Whether you want to give it to someone else or keep it for yourself is your business. It has nothing to do with me. As Zhou Wen spoke, he took out a few companion beasts and handed them to Li Xian. Although these fellows aren't very strong, they are very special. In the future, you will have to guard Ancient City and deal with all sorts of situations. These will be useful. These companion beasts included Primordial Spore, Evil Spirit King Tai Sui, Explosive Fiend Man, Dr. Darkness, and other strange companion beasts. Finally, Zhou Wen gave prisoner to Li Xian. After Zhou Wen left, Guide Ancient City would be relying on Li Xian. Without any decent companion beasts, many wealthy families in Guide Ancient City would probably carve the city up very quickly. Although Prisoner was considered very weak among the Apocalypse grade, he was once Earth's companion beast after all. Now that Earth was being nurtured by the race artifacts, he could definitely continue growing in such an environment. He should be able to become an important aid to Li Xian. Don't worry. With me around, nothing will happen to us.
Li Xian didn't stand on ceremony as he contracted all the companion beasts.
Guard it if you can. Don't worry if people no longer believe in it,
Zhou Wen said.
With me around, it will be fine,
Li Xian said indifferently, but his eyes were extremely firm. Chapter 1903 A World Without Gods End. Chapter 1903 A World Without Gods End. Do you wish to use the cosmic coin? Deep in the cosmos, Zhou Wen held his phone in one hand and cosmic coin in the other. An activation notification appeared on his phone. Zhou Wen didn't hesitate to choose yes. He wanted to see what was outside this world, as well as where the laboratory and woman in the video were. Why could the phone download Dimensional Zone dungeons? Who was behind all of this? Was the main universe a higher level world than this universe? Or was that just a name? Why did they send in Jing and her mother in? All of these answers could only be obtained by leaving. Therefore, he chose to leave without any hesitation. He was willing to risk everything for this. The cosmic coin left Zhou Wen's finger and spun violently in the air. Purple lightning shot out from the cosmic coin like an energy storm. The surrounding space distorted as the purple light intensified and grew bigger. Boom! A purple ancient door slowly descended amidst the distorted purple light. As the ruler of this universe, Zhou Wen actually felt the laws of the universe being crushed and shattered by the purple door. It was akin to glass. The purple door descended in an extremely terrifying manner and seemed to condense mysterious and ancient nomological powers in every inch. It was incomprehensible. With it suppressing and shattering everything, it made Zhou Wen feel that even if he used all the power in the universe, it would probably be difficult to budge the door at all. Back then, didn't Jing's mother steer the ship through this door? Zhou Wen stared at the purple door that had now completely descended and walked to it. Just as he was about to push it open, he suddenly saw a strange change in the surrounding space. 4 figures tore through the air. They were the 4 Demetrius monkeys, who stood in 4 different spots and looked down at Zhou Wen like 4 demons.
You may leave, but leave Truth Listener behind.
The long-armed ape monkey's voice was like a huge pillar striking a bell. Its voice was heavy and resounding. As it resounded, it seemed to baptize souls with an ancient charm.
Why?
Zhou Wen asked the long-armed ape monkey.
It can't head there, or it will be inauspicious. It won't be beneficial to you at all. Instead, it will invite a great disaster,
the 6-eared macaque said with a grin.
Why would it be inauspicious when Truth Listener leaves?
Zhou Wen frowned.
Because Truth Listener shouldn't leave in the first place.
The red-bottomed horse monkey's voice sounded.
I'll give you one last chance. Give me a reason to convince me,
Zhou Wen said indifferently as he glanced at the purple door. The 4 Demetrius monkeys looked at each other. The intelligent stone monkey said,
Truth Listener's fate has something to do with your fate. If you leave with him, one of you will suffer in the future. It's best if you leave him behind.
After hearing that, Zhou Wen didn't say another word as he pushed open the door.
You can't take Truth Listener away.
The 4 Demetrius monkeys roared in unison, hoping to rush forward to stop Zhou Wen. However, after the purple door was pushed open, the purple light that shot out shone on the 4 Demetrius monkeys. Immediately, they screamed in unison. The places where their bodies were illuminated by the purple light vanished like melted ice. They flew back, not daring to approach the door or be illuminated by the purple light behind it. All they could do was roar from afar, hoping that Zhou Wen would leave Truth Listener behind. Zhou Wen ignored them and walked out the door amidst the purple light, disappearing into it. He dared to leave with the Devil King and the Arch. The Devil King was the child of Dimension and could be said to be the master of fate. If she could leave this world, why couldn't Truth Listener? He didn't take the words of the 4 Demetrius monkeys to heart. In fact, they had said similar things in the past. Zhou Wen didn't believe in that at all. He had already fused with the universe. Even if the 4 Demetrius monkeys could deduce the heavenly secrets, how could they know more than him? Boom! The purple door closed and gradually vanished in the purple light. The storm-like purple light finally condensed into a point and suddenly shattered into nothingness.
It's over. Truth Listener has left.
The 4 Demetrius monkeys' faces were ashen.
Haha, are the 4 of you jokers? You're killing me. You wanted to use that nonsense to fool him. Don't you know who that person is?
A rich and beautiful nobleman in a white fur coat stood in the air above the 4 Demetrius monkeys and said with a smile,
You darn fellow, you dare stand before us? Why didn't you stop him from taking Truth Listener away?
The 4 Demetrius monkeys roared angrily at the white-robed nobleman.
Why should I stop him?
The nobleman curled his lips and said disdainfully,
You should know the consequences if Truth Listener is discovered by them.
The long-armed ape monkey said in a deep voice.
How would I know the consequences? I'm not his father. The nobleman cursed. I'm just a Commodonus. What do I have to stop him? The four of you didn't even dare to stop him. Why should I? Will you be responsible if my handsome face is accidentally injured? Why don't you just die? The intelligent stone monkey wore an angry expression, but it couldn't speak with the nobleman's eloquence. It only managed to come up with one sentence. Truth listener has already been taken away. By him? It's too late to say anything now. The red-bottomed horse monkey said with a sigh. You have yourself to blame. Why didn't you take action in the past? Now that he's the ruler of a universe, what's the point of stopping him? The nobleman curled his lips. Who would have expected him to succeed in the end? That devil king was clearly the destined one. The red-bottomed horse monkey felt even more helpless when it heard that. That's why you can't beat the heavens, no matter how much plotting you do. Instead of wasting your time on useless things, you might as well drink a little more. The nobleman looked at the spot where the purple door had vanished and turned to slowly leave. Truth listener doesn't belong here to begin with. Leaving with him is 100 times better than cowering here with the four of you cowards. The four Demetrius monkeys were enraged and were about to attack the nobleman, but he was nowhere to be seen. What is this place? Joan looked at the scene in front of him in a daze. This was somewhat different from what he had imagined. The place he stood was before a huge tomb that was as huge as a mountain. Around him was a boundless void. This huge tomb was actually floating in the void. On the mountain-like tomb, there were all sorts of strange objects stuck in it. There were common things like swords, sabers, and axes. There were also some strange things, such as rulers, banners, cauldrons, furnaces, and even a broom stuck upside down. No matter what item it was, it seemed to have a mysterious power flowing in it. Every item was unbelievable. If he could take back any item here, it would probably be an earth-shattering divine item. However, many of these divine objects had already snapped, leaving only their incomplete bodies embedded in the tomb, adding a hint of sorrow to the tomb. At the top of the tomb was a cloth flag. It looked ordinary and nothing special. However, on the cloth flag, there were the words, Destiny Divination. Joan silently chanted the words. Although the flag didn't have anything special about it, the words gave him a mysterious feeling. Welcome to the world without gods. This will be the place where you begin and end. Please leave an item that represents you on the heavenly tomb. If you die there, this item will be your last tombstone. The item will remain intact as long as you are alive. Regardless of whether you are a god or devil, immortal or saint in the past, from now on, you will only struggle to survive in that terrifying world as a normal person. There are no gods, immortals, or saints in that world because even the most ordinary person was once the ruler of a world. And in that world, you are just an ordinary person who can die at any time. What you need to do is live on and walk to the end. There were no words engraved in front of them. A grave. The tombstone that resembled wordless heavenly monument suddenly lit up as a voice sounded in Joan's mind. Who are you? Joan asked the tomb. There was no answer. No matter what Joan said, he didn't receive any response. Furthermore, he couldn't find a way to leave. The boundless void seemed endless. He couldn't sense any life, not even the existence of matter. It was as though there was only one tomb in the entire world. Joan thought for a moment, and removed the human sovereign stone saber at his waist before casually stabbing it into the grave. Although the voice didn't say what needed to be left behind, probably anything, Joan still decided to leave the human sovereign stone saber behind. If any creature from Earth or the dimension came here in the future, they should be able to recognize the human sovereign stone saber and determine his life and death from its condition. Of course, at Joan's level, the human sovereign stone saber was already useless to him. It was no different from an ordinary weapon. It was useless keeping it by his side. The human sovereign stone saber stabbed into the heavenly tomb, and the light on the tombstone immediately transformed into a vortex tunnel. At the other end of the tunnel was likely the world without gods mentioned by the voice. Live to the end. Live to the end. When Joan was devoured by the vortex, he heard the voice again, constantly echoing in his ears. System unlocked. Vitality evaluation. Rookie LV 1. Guardian 1. Discovered lifeform that can be converted into Destiny Guardian. Discovered lifeform that can be converted into a Guardian. Converting. Discovered lifeform that can be converted into a Guardian. Converting. Discovered lifeform that can't be converted into a Guardian. Energy restructuring. Energy restructuring. Error. Error. This lifeform can't be restructured. Resetting scan. Origin of lifeform. Z14 spacetime. Name, Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General. Can't be reconstructed. Equivalent transformation into a guardian. Lifeform can't be converted into a guardian. Energy restructuring. Restructuring failed. When kept hearing a voice in his mind. It was likely the voice of the phone system. Then, he felt his vision go black as he fell unconscious. You're finally here. My lovely, toy in a Joe. Huge prison in the cosmos. There was only one bespectacled female prisoner. She seemed to sense something as she looked up at the cosmos beyond the prison. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly, as she wore an intriguing smile. She was like a hunter who had discovered her prey. Chapter 1904 Epilogue. Chapter 1904 Epilogue. Two girls were playing on the grass, when they suddenly saw a snow-white antelope walk past them. Their eyes lit up. The antelope was abnormally handsome. Its white fur was as soft as a plush toy. It didn't appear bald like an ordinary antelope. The two girls ran over and wanted to feed the antelope some grass. The antelope was docile and obedient. It lowered its head and slowly ate the grass that the little girl brought over, delighting the two girls even more. They reached out their tiny hands to stroke the antelope's fur. It looked like it was enjoying itself. You're actually eating grass. Have some integrity, would you? A man walked over and looked at the antelope. The two girls jumped in fright, thinking that the antelope belonged to the man. They hurriedly apologized to the man for touching his antelope. The man smiled and handed some candy to the two girls, sending them elsewhere to play. Integrity? Can that stuff be eaten? The antelope suddenly turned into a nobleman in a white fur coat. It spat out the grass in its mouth and said disapprovingly, Besides, Zhou Lingfeng, compared to you, I believe my integrity is probably perfect. Why aren't you enjoying yourself on Mount Laojun? Why are you here? Zhou Lingfeng sized up the antelope and said in surprise, Have your injuries healed? The race artifacts are now on Earth. There's almost infinite essence energy and various nomological powers on Earth. If I can't recover in such an environment, would I have been able to survive? The antelope smiled and said, It's all thanks to your good son. Otherwise, my injuries would have killed me. Who asked you to tempt fate? You're clearly a loser, but you chose to force open that door. Zhou Lingfeng curled his lips and said, You are the loser. Your entire family consists of losers. If you hadn't instigated me, would I have left Mount Laojun? The antelope fumed. How was I the one instigating you? Did I push or pull you into doing it? You were the one who wanted to leave. Zhou Lingfeng said as he shrugged. If you hadn't told me how nice the outside world is, would I have opened that screwed-up door? The antelope snorted coldly. I was telling the truth. Not a single word of falsehood. Zhou Lingfeng smiled. Who knows if what you said is true? It's not like I managed to leave. The antelope stared at Zhou Lingfeng and said, Although you can't return, your son's return can be considered a fulfillment of your wish. Who knows if it's a blessing or a curse? I originally wanted him to live here peacefully for the rest of his life. I never expected him to reach this stage. This wasn't my intention. Zhou Lingfeng sighed. What's there to worry about? He's your son. He belongs to that world to begin with. The antelope said, It's not as simple as you put it. I was just a prisoner who had been stripped of everything. I can't be considered a member of that world. Furthermore, he has half of Earth's blood. He basically has nothing to do with that world. After Zhou Lingfeng said that, he frowned and asked, Why are you here? I want to leave. I came to ask if you have any other solutions? The antelope said with narrowed eyes. Yes, make a cosmic coin yourself and open the door. Zhou Lingfeng said with a smile. I wouldn't have come looking for you if I knew how to make one. The antelope rolled its eyes at him. You are from that world. Don't you know any other methods? Is there a back door or something? If I hadn't become a prisoner, it wouldn't have been difficult for me to send you out. Now, there's nothing I can do. However, you can try to find the other exiled prisoners. Perhaps they will have a solution. Zhou Lingfeng said. Find my ass? Why would I come to you if I could find them? I've waited at Mount Laojun for thousands of years, but I didn't get to meet Laozi. I don't know if he's dead or did he return. You are the only prisoner in the past few millennia. Who am I to find? The antelope cursed, looking extremely incompatible with his noble look. Then there's nothing I can do about it. I've only been here for a few decades. If you can't find one, I can't find one either. Besides, we nearly caused a huge disaster the last time we abducted Truth Listener from the 4 Demetrius monkeys to open the door. It nearly caused the dimensional zones to break out ahead of time. Truth Listener was also reduced to its original state due to excessive expenditure of its essence. If you hadn't let it absorb energy for recovery by secretly swapping it with small Buddha Temple's companion egg, I'm afraid you wouldn't have been able to stay alive. Zhou Lingfeng thought for a moment and said, Now that Truth Listener has been taken away, The only cosmic coin that the female prisoner brought is gone. If you want to leave, there's no other solution but to create a cosmic coin yourself. You were both prisoners, but why was that woman treated so well? UF** King felt like a dog. Not only did she come on a ship, but she also had a cosmic coin. That's a stark difference. Does that woman have a very strong backer in your world? And you are just a poor fellow with nothing. The antelope chuckled. I don't know if she has a backer, but that ship and cosmic coin weren't for her. They were for her child. She was a prisoner, but her child wasn't. That's why there was a ship and a cosmic coin. They were for her child to use when she grew up. However, I think there's still something wrong. In theory, a pregnant woman shouldn't be exiled here. Not only was she exiled, but her memories were also tampered with. Furthermore, she brought so many things that don't belong to this world. This is very problematic. Zhou Lingfeng said. Didn't you say that you once led a glorious life in that world? Did you never hear of the Lost Immortal Sutra? The antelope said. No, I'm very certain that there's no Lost Immortal Sutra in the famous cultivation techniques in that world. Zhou Lingfeng said. Is there a possibility that your memories were also tampered with? The antelope said sinisterly. Zhou Lingfeng's expression changed slightly. What you said isn't impossible, but the indications put it at a very low probability. As long as there's a possibility, it's possible, right? The antelope curled its lips and said, Forget it. There's no point in saying this now. Let's think about how to create a cosmic coin. How do we get that thing? First, find a cosmic life form and turn it into a cosmic coin. Zhou Lingfeng answered with a serious expression. How? The antelope frowned. How would I know? It's not like I can do it. Zhou Lingfeng spread out his hands and said, In that world, one needs to use a special place to turn cosmic life forms into cosmic coins. This isn't that world, nor is there such a place. How would I know how to do the transformation? I've heard of people who can turn cosmic life forms into cosmic coins, but that's only a legend. No one has seen them before. Cut the crap. I might as well head back to wait for Luzzy. The antelope looked displeased as it turned around and left. Enjoy life. The outside world isn't as good as you think. Zhou Lingfeng said to the antelope. F***ck, that's not what you said decades ago, when you tempted me. The antelope gave him the middle finger without turning its head. Zhou Lingfeng smiled and said, I just had the intention to escape and return back then. Now that I think about it, staying here isn't a bad idea. F***ck off. The antelope vanished without looking back. Zhou Lingfeng looked in the direction where the antelope had vanished for a while before retracting his gaze. He muttered to himself, I hope the Lost Immortal Sutra doesn't really belong to that woman. Otherwise, little one will be in big trouble. Chapter 1905 E&D Bonus Chapter, Antelope's Gift. Chapter 1905 Bonus Chapter, Antelope's Gift. There was no one around Guide Ancient City who didn't know Carpenter Zhou. There was nothing to say about his carpentry skills passed down from his ancestors. Thanks to these skills, such as making beds, cabinets, and even building houses, he could complete all of them using standard tenon and mortise structures without using even a nail, much less a nail gun. Some old families would ask Carpenter Zhou for help when they moved to a new house or got married. Carpenter Zhou's craftsmanship was good and he was honest. He never bickered with others. If the client was rich and gave more, he would accept what he deserved with a smile. Poorer clients could pay less, and he would still accept it with a smile, without a care. If the neighbors were really in trouble, he would provide them with meals and never complain. He was such a good person, but the heavens didn't bless him. He and his wife were already in their early 50s, but they were barren. This was Carpenter Zhou's only regret. Ancient City recently underwent renovations. The city officials wanted to restore this unique ancient city to its appearance back in its heyday. Therefore, the city leadership sought out Carpenter Zhou and got him to help repair some ancient houses and wooden buildings. While cleaning an old courtyard, Carpenter Zhou and a few workers dug out a broken wooden box from an ancient well. At first, the workers imagined that they had dug up some treasure, but when they opened the box, they saw that it was filled with mud and water. After pouring out the mud and water, they found a phone that could no longer be turned on. There were also all kinds of random stuff. Most of them were rusty. There was also something that looked like a rubber ball. When they saw the phone, the workers immediately realized that it was not an antique treasure at all. They lost interest, believing that someone had thrown their rubbish into the abandoned ancient well. Carpenter Zhou found the wooden box rather interesting, so he tidied up the things inside and brought them home. After cleaning them up, he placed the random items in the storeroom and only studied the wooden box. This wooden box didn't have any nails, nor did it use any glue. It was obvious that it was made with good workmanship. Carpenter Joe had been a carpenter for most of his life, but he had never seen such workmanship. He held the wooden box in his hand and studied it all day. That day, Carpenter Joe was preparing to head out to work. His home was an ancient city, so he could have slept a little longer. Furthermore, a master like him actually didn't have to go so early. There were even many things that he didn't have to do personally. However, Carpenter Joe had been hardworking for most of his life. He really felt uncomfortable watching others work while he sat idle. Carpenter Joe couldn't sleep well if there was still work to be done. He got up at dawn, put on his clothes, prepared breakfast for his wife, and placed it on the table. Then, he pushed open the door and prepared to head to the construction site to think about what to do next. But the moment he pushed open the door, Carpenter Joe was stunned. He saw a fair and fat antelope standing at the door. That antelope exuded a godly presence. Its white curly hair was as white as cotton. It was tall, big, handsome, and extremely clean. Carpenter Joe had seen antelopes on television before, but none of the antelopes on TV had such long curly hair. None of them were as fair and amazing as this one. What surprised Carpenter Joe even more was that the curly-haired antelope was holding a child that looked to be a few months old in its mouth. The child was wearing dungarees, and the antelope held the strap in its mouth. Its big black eyes met Carpenter Joe's. Ow! The curly-haired white antelope suddenly opened its mouth and let out a cry. The child in its mouth also fell to the ground. Then, it turned around and fled, disappearing in a blink of an eye. The child fell to the ground and immediately cried out in pain. Carpenter Joe hurriedly carried the child and checked if he was injured. Fortunately, the child was not injured. It was just a fall. Carpenter Joe carried the child back home and asked his wife to take care of him. After dawn, he went to the police station to get the police to help find the child's family. However, no one had reported a missing child despite the police's investigations. When they heard that a curly-haired white antelope had brought the child to Carpenter Joe's house, all of them found it odd. The ancient city was only so big. The news of the antelope bringing a child to a barren couple quickly spread throughout the city. People said that the heavens found Carpenter Joe a good man and got the antelope to give him a son. In the beginning, Carpenter Joe did not believe in such things. However, as time passed, with no one coming forward to claim the child, they took care of the child. The old couple liked the child very much, so they wanted to adopt him. After a few months of not finding the child's parents, and with the help of the relevant department, the old couple successfully adopted the child. They named him Joe Yong-ong, and the family of 3 started a new life. Joe Yong-ong was not even a year old, but he did not cry or make a fuss. He was also good-looking. Other than being lazy and picky, he was really good in every aspect. A child of this age should be at the age where he should eat and play. The old couple was not stingy, and bought him all kinds of delicious food. They treated him like a treasure, and doted on him every day, unwilling to leave him. For a moment, afraid that he would bump into something. One day, Carpenter Joe went out to work the night shift. His wife rocked Joe Yong-ong to sleep. Seeing that the woman was sound asleep, Joe Yong-ong suddenly got up quietly, and tiptoed out of bed. He opened the door to the courtyard, and gently opened the main door. People in the know would know that this was a child less than a year old, but those not in the know would think he was a recalcitrant thief. The door cracked open, and an antelope's head sneaked in. It looked around and realized that there was no one else other than Joe Yong-ong, before quickly entering.
Darn you, you actually have the cheek return? You didn't bring me along when you fled,
Joe Yong-ong said under his breath. His fluency and expression did not make him look like a child who was less than a year old.
Ahem, you can't blame me. You know my current situation. I don't have any essence energy at all. I'm not much different from an ordinary antelope. If I'm really captured, I might be roasted into lamb skewers. How can I not run?
The curly-haired antelope said awkwardly.
Humph, why are you back?
Joe Yong-ong said angrily.
Didn't we agree that if we find something, we'll do 50-50? You can't have it all for yourself. You've infiltrated for a few months. Have you found anything?
The antelope asked with a chuckle.
What's there to find? That couple watches over me 24 hours a day. I don't even dare to speak. How am I to find anything?
Joe Yong-ong rolled his eyes. Just as the antelope was about to say something, it heard a voice coming from the back room. It turned around and walked out, not forgetting to remind Joe Yong-ong.
Don't forget who saved you when you first arrived. Remember to give me half of what you get.
The antelope crawled out of the door. Soon, Carpenter Joe's wife hurriedly walked out of the house. When she saw Joe Yong-ong sitting obediently on a small stool in the yard,
She heaved a sigh of relief. Yang Yang, why did you run out by yourself? My baby, I was so worried. The woman carried Zhou Yangyang and kissed him on the cheek lovingly. Zhou Yangyang looked helpless. After being carried back into the house by the woman, Zhou Yangyang sat helplessly in the crib. The woman even gave him a puppet to play with. Zhou Yangyang waited for the woman to fall asleep and snore before carefully climbing out of the crib and searching the room. According to his observations over the past 2 to 3 months, the item was definitely in the storeroom. He walked quietly to the door of the storeroom, but he realized that he could not reach the door handle. He muttered gloomily, "That darn me asterisk TCH. It's fine if you exile me, but you even made me an infant. I'll teach you a lesson when I get back." Zhou Yangyang had no choice. He looked around and saw a small wooden stool to the side. He had no choice but to move the stool over. Just as he placed it at the door of the storeroom, he heard the woman snoring stop. There was also the sound of her body turning. She seemed to be getting up. Zhou Yangyang hurriedly moved the stool back and sat down, pretending to be very obedient. But after a while, he heard the woman snoring again. It turned out that the woman had only turned in her sleep. How could a woman snore like that? Zhou Yangyang lifted the stool gloomily and moved it to the door of the storeroom. His body was really too tiny, and he didn't have any strength at all. Even moving a stool was exhausting. Just as Zhou Yangyang was about to step on the stool to open the door, the woman's snoring stopped again. This time, it sounded like she was about to wake up. Zhou Yangyang hurriedly moved the stool back and sat down obediently. But after a while, there was another snore from the back room. This made Zhou Yangyang so depressed that he almost blew a gasket. Gritting his teeth, he moved the stool over. This time, Zhou Yangyang was determined to the door. Open, I'm just a child anyway. What's wrong with being curious? So what if I'm found out? It doesn't matter. I'm not going to put up an act anymore. I want to open the door. Zhou Yangyang stood on the stool angrily. Who cares about that woman? I just want to open the door. Zhou Yangyang placed his hand on the doorknob and was about to open the door when he suddenly felt a large force at his waist that lifted him up. Yangyang, what are you doing here? Carpenter Zhou, who had just finished his night shift, was back. He picked up Zhou Yangyang and kissed him on the face. Damn earthlings, why do you like the faces of your loved ones so much? Don't you have a face yourself? Zhou Yangyang's face was filled with resistance and helplessness. Yangyang, you can't open this door. Otherwise, you'll be in big trouble. Carpenter Zhou pointed at the door of the storeroom and said. Zhou Yangyang thought to himself, as expected, the item should be inside. It seems that this human has discovered that those things are unusual. Carpenter Zhou's words made Zhou Yangyang even more determined to search the storeroom. However, Carpenter Zhou and his wife were too concerned about him and were afraid of any accidents. They were in their 50s and had finally gotten a son. How could they not care? Any stir would have the couple immediately appear beside Zhou Yangyang. It could be said that they never left his side, causing Zhou Yangyang's plan to fail again and again. Zhou Yangyang nearly went crazy. If it weren't for the fact that he had turned into a baby, he would have chopped the couple on the neck and knocked them out. After putting up with this for many more days, Zhou Yangyang finally found a perfect opportunity. Carpenter Zhou went out to work while the woman washed clothes in the yard. Zhou Yangyang, who was pretending to be asleep, secretly got up and carried the small stool to the door of the storeroom. He stood on it and held the handle. He even stole a few glances outside. After confirming that the woman would not come in, he pressed the handle and pulled the door open. My babies, here I come. Zhou Yangyang only opened a sliver, but the door opened fully by itself. Zhou Yangyang only saw cardboard boxes piled up inside. They were so full that they were about to overflow. The door had been closed with great difficulty previously. Now that Zhou Yangyang pulled it open, the cardboard boxes inside instantly lost their balance and surged out like a flood, instantly drowning Zhou Yangyang. Yangyang! When the woman heard the sounds, she hurriedly ran into the house. When she saw the situation, she immediately pounced forward and pushed away the cardboard boxes. She picked up Zhou Yangyang, whose face was bruised and swollen, and said with an aching heart, Yangyang, good Yangyang. Yangyang, don't cry. It's all Mommy's fault. Mommy shouldn't have bought so many things online. The plan failed again. Damn female earthling. Why did you buy so much useless junk? You already bought it, so Why didn't you even open it? It hurts so much. Boo-hoo. Zhou Yangyang was devastated. After recuperating for a few days, Zhou Yangyang's injuries finally recovered under the couple's meticulous care. However, because of what had happened, the couple kept a closer eye on him. They even locked the door of the storeroom to prevent Zhou Yangyang from opening it again. Do you think that you can stop the number one military advisor in the universe, Feng Ling? Earthlings, you are too naive. Zhou Yangyang held a key in his hand and smiled sinisterly. Glanced at the woman sleeping. Zhou Yangyang soundly in the room. This time, he had come prepared. While the woman was asleep, he stuffed earplugs into her ears. The woman had been taking care of him day and night for the past few days. She was so tired that she slept soundly and did not even know that she had earplugs in. He stood on the small stool again and opened the door with the key. Then, he jumped to the side elegantly and watched the boxes fall to the ground. He elegantly bowed, as though he was making a curtain call. A genius is a genius. Even if he becomes a baby, he's still a genius baby. How can such a small matter stump me? Zhou Yangyang climbed over the mountain like cardboard boxes and arrived in the storeroom. He finally saw the item of his dreams. At the far end of the storeroom was a large wooden box that should contain what he wanted. Babies, I'm here. Zhou Yangyang came to the wooden box and used all his strength to open the lid. Bang! Zhou Yangyang only saw a red object pop out of the box and smash straight into his face. He fell backward onto the cardboard boxes, his nose bleeding. Inside the wooden box, a red boxing glove was shaking continuously. Below it was a thick and large spring. Why did you buy such a thing? Zhou Yangyang lay on the pile of cardboard boxes with a look of despair. Tears fell from the corners of his eyes. Baby! The woman's devastating cry sounded again. As expected, Zhou Yangyang rested for a few more days. Failure after failure made Zhou Yangyang almost think that this couple had discovered his true identity and were deliberately messing with him. However, no matter how he looked at it, it did not seem like it. Every plan ended in failure, and he was covered in injuries. When Zhou Yangyang thought that he had been possessed by the god of misfortune and was about to despair, he was pleasantly surprised. Carpenter Zhou took out a wooden box for him to play with. When the wooden box was opened, Zhou Yangyang's eyes lit up. He was so excited that he thought he had finally been doted on by God. The items in the wooden box were things he had dreamed of. The phone, the cosmic coin, companion egg, the earth. That night, Zhou Yangyang took advantage of the fact that the couple had fallen asleep and prepared to escape. After quietly opening the door, the antelope was already waiting outside. Seeing Zhou Yangyang come out, the antelope hurriedly rushed out of the shadows in the alley when it saw that there was no one around. It hurriedly asked, Did you succeed? What do you think? Zhou Yangyang patted the trash bag he was carrying proudly. Everything is inside. Let's go! Without another word, the antelope picked up Zhou Yangyang and threw him onto its back before running towards the city gate. I'm finally free. Feng Ling looked at the small courtyard that was gradually disappearing. For some reason, he felt a little uncomfortable. Zhou Yangyang was lost. Carpenter Zhou and his wife nearly cried themselves blind. They searched everywhere for Zhou Yangyang, asking everyone they saw. They searched everywhere, but they could not find any trace of Zhou Yangyang. The police helped search for him when they reported the lost child, but they failed to find any clues. Zhou Yangyang seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Carpenter Zhou and his wife seemed to lose their souls. They were in a daze. They seemed to have aged significantly in a few days. They even sprouted white hair. The woman found any child around Zhou Yangyang's age resembling Zhou Yangyang. Many times, she would pounce on him in surprise, only to be disappointed that she had been mistaken. The couple could not let go of the child. In the end, they pooled their family's money and drove the pickup truck that Carpenter Zhou usually used to deliver wood. They planned to go out and look for Zhou Yangyang. Even if they had to travel all over the country, they had to find the child. Carpenter Zhou drove the pickup with his wife. There was a small flag made from Zhou Yangyang's photo on the pickup. In the back row were pots, pans, blankets, and other daily necessities. The couple had just driven out of the city gate, handsome snow-white antelope standing in. When they were stunned, they saw the middle of the road with a dejected child in its mouth. It seemed to be smiling at them.